I'm looking. According to iPad time, are we missing anybody? I'll go ahead and call this April 9th meeting to order. The first item on our agenda is closed meeting. Specifically, be it resolved that the Montgomery County Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia, hereby enters into a closed meeting for the purposes of discussing the following. Section 2.23711, discussions concerning a prospective business or industry or expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community. Specifically, project number 2018-013. Next item is discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for public purpose or the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, namely Allegheny Springs Consolidated Site. The next item is consultations with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel, alternative form of government. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Okay. Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fidget-Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett? Aye. Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye, and I didn't ask if there was any discussion, but did anybody want to discuss anything? Fair enough. We're in closed meeting. Is there a motion to come out of closed meeting?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Fidget-Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Certification of closed meeting. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.23711 of the Code of Virginia requires the certification by the Board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia, hereby certifies to the best of each member's knowledge only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting, to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion conveying the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Board. And this certification is our Board's word to you that we're only discussing things that we're supposed to in closed session. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fidget-Kowski?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
7 ayes.
The next item on our agenda is a moment of silence, and then we'll have the pledge. After the moment of silence, I'll ask the County Administrator to lead us in the pledge.
Let us pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Next up is Sue with the Montgomery County Museum and presentations. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Chairman Tuck, members of the board, Mr. Meadows. I am Sue Fuller, Director of the Montgomery Museum. Still, it's always my pleasure to come here and thank you so much for your support, which is so vital to the ongoing work of the museum. As the county's museum, we feel and welcome the responsibility of caring for the history and art of the county and presenting it to the public. Over the past few years, we have been, well, for a number of years, we've been attending a state conference for museums. And we've come to realize that the role of museums has changed drastically. We are expected to be an educational institution, an anchor in the community, and host to various events. So as a museum, we're pleased to tell you that we're working hard to fulfill these roles in a number of ways. Partnering with the Great Road Events on Main has given us an opportunity to bring events downtown. Most exciting was Hearts on Main last February, where we had a 2-day event just dedicated to arts, and there were artists demonstrating and selling, and 2 evening performances. So we had a variety of arts going on the same weekend. It was highly successful and certainly will be repeated. Look for it. As you can see from our schedule, which you have in front of you, we are continuing with our other established events throughout the year. It has been our intent as partners with the town to present musical events outside for the whole community. But after the most disastrous downpour, rain, wipeout last year, we have decided not to risk that again, and we're bringing that Mountains of Music event inside to the Great Road Events. Sorry about the outside. It will be June 14th. New partners for us this year include Christiansburg Presbyterian Church and Wells Fargo Bank. Give Big Day is coming on April 18th, and we are part of a county-wide online giving day. You have in front of you an invitation to come and support the museum and enjoy our day of online giving, and also our 35th year, where we're celebrating with some old-timey recipes, pound cake and sweet tea, and we're giving away this very delicate recipe for sweet tea. Art Talks by Scott Crawford in conjunction with the Kiwanis Club, art classes, Cruise in Christiansburg, Heritage Day, which is still our largest event, round out our other fundraising events for the year. The genealogy team has continued to grow, and we now have a research team to help people find family information. And weekly, we have at least one person coming, and we get calls from all over the country. I mentioned last year a new program which identifies earliest settlers in Montgomery County, and I'm happy to tell you that we now have 24 families participating in this program. Needless to say, our genealogy files are getting very fat. I also reported last year about the start of a program called Junior Appalachian Musicians, or JAM, and it is now going with 17 students meeting regularly on Thursday on Main Street Inc., learning Appalachian music and about our culture. This will be expanded next year to include other ages and other schools probably. Our facility is used regularly for research from various groups and individuals. Each year we have a high school class from Auburn who they come, they take over the museum, they camp out all over the floor, spend the day doing research on various projects, and those are presented at Heritage Day. We also have a scout troop this year coming to work and earn an art badge. The lady who was our artist exhibiting came and worked with them that evening to help them earn that badge. Our big news this year is to expand our facility. It's a great leap, and we are bursting at the seams. And as we've looked at sites around the community, we feel that it will be better to stay and better serve the community by staying where we are and adding to our building. Now, we're just at the very beginning phase, like just talking, so I don't have any information about that at all, but we will keep you posted. There's a few facts that might interest you about the museum. Over 160 volunteers worked with the museum last year. I don't know how we would operate without the volunteers in the community. We are very aware of our role in tourism, as we had visitors from 23 other states and 6 other countries last year. The garden now boasts a beautiful brick walkway, not quite complete, made of bricks from the town. When the town took up the bricks for the sidewalk and replaced, they gave us the bricks. So it's a very historic walk in the garden, and certainly is a nice addition. We had a wedding last year, our first, And we're just so hopeful that the new addition will give us the opportunity to have receptions, weddings, and maybe town meetings and so forth. We're proud to be playing an active role in the cultural life of the county, and will continue our efforts to create new relationships for the benefits of our citizens. Do y'all have any questions?
I'll start off with Supervisor King.
No questions, but thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
Supervisor Fidzikowski.
I don't have any questions, but thank you for what you're doing for the community.
Thank you for your support.
Supervisor DeMotts.
I don't have any questions either, but I really appreciate the information. It's always good to know what's going on.
Well, come and see us.
I will.
Supervisor Dix.
Thank you for all you do, and I want to say that the original investment by the Board of Supervisors years ago, that original investment to help get it off the ground really has repaid itself over and over with everything that you guys offer.
Well, we have a good team.
Supervisor Bone.
I forget how long you've been there. How long have you been there?
9 years.
That's amazing. Thank you.
It's a history. I'm still living.
Thank you for everything that you do.
Supervisor Shepherd.
Thank you for everything you do, and I do want to come by.
Please do.
I do.
Well,
Thank
Sue,
you.
I've got a couple of things now.
Okay.
You know, every year I do a history on regards to veterans, and so
Right.
I will be coming to see you again
Very good.
here in just a few weeks. And I want to thank you for the access that your staff and your volunteers allow me to be able to do that, to honor those veterans who gave the ultimate sacrifice, especially those in Vietnam. And I just want to take that opportunity to thank you personally, as well as your staff.
Well, it's our job to be there for you.
Thank you. The next is David Clark with VDOT. David did say he wouldn't mind being pushed back behind the budget, but at discussions. But
I don't think I said that, but I didn't volunteer it. Good evening. I'm going to give you just a little update on what's going on with VDOT and how we. Oh, first of all, I want to mention, you may notice I'm wearing this little orange pin here. It is Work Zone Safety Awareness Week with VDOT. It's where we try to call attention to our work zones, which are getting ready to gear up this summer. In fact, we've already started paving down in the Shawsville area. So you'll see message boards with safety messages on it. This is the week we take. And I think nationwide, they're doing this kind of thing to make the public aware of work zones and not just the VDOT people in them, but the contractors and everyone who are working in the work zones, and for the traveling public going through work zones as well. So I wanted to mention that safety message first. Last month or so, as you can imagine, we've been dealing with weather of one kind or another, with a lot of snow, a lot of wind. In fact, our crews are still working extended hours picking up the debris that we pushed out of the road a few weeks ago, a week or so ago. We were able to cut through a lot of that stuff, and I know a lot of people in Montgomery County without power. I was without power for a few days, but I think we worked well with AP in trying to get them to the places, get the main roads open, and now we're still in the cleanup mode for that. So I won't go through all of the roads that we're still doing that on, but our crews are working basically 12-hour days right now. We're going to cut back here pretty soon to our normal hours as we get some of that stuff out of the way. There are some construction projects still getting ready to start and are still going on in the county. Yellow Sulphur Road, the unpaved portion of that is set to go. The contractor has been awarded the contract, and they'll start in the next couple weeks to do another section of Yellow Sulphur Road. It won't be the whole thing, but they'll get the section on the Christiansburg end. VDOT crews will do Brush Creek a little bit later in the summer. They've got one project they need to do first, and they're going to be going to Brush Creek probably in a couple months. So that'll be the first one they do with it in Montgomery County. As I said, we've already started paving. Some of the overlay sections started in Route 11. I think they were supposed to do today, but we had snow again this morning, and temperatures too cold to pave. There was a question last time on the Bonus Run Bridge. We've been talking about that for quite a while, and I don't know if you've received some correspondence from Ken King, the district administrator. We're working on a solution to make that a little bit easier for emergency vehicles to cross, whether it be widening it so they can get straight. The problem with the guardrail is that,
legally it's guardrail. We're not allowed to tamper with it, or it's reliable. So we have to make sure we do it in an approved, engineered, stamped way. You just can't go fiddling with guardrail. So we're going to work with the property owner to maybe get that a little bit wider and work with Neil Turner on a method for that. And I don't know if you've received that correspondence from our district office, but it should be coming to you fairly soon. There's been some questions on speed studies, and those are still in the works. Bishop Road and Walton Road. Some of those, they have speed limits on parts of them. I'm assuming the board would like the rest of those roads done. I know parts of Bishop don't have it, and the middle section, probably of Walton Road, doesn't have it. And so this is just hasn't been a good time of year to get a good speed study with the weather and everything. So those should be coming up. And the only other thing I have as far as an update goes is we are scheduled to have a public hearing, if the board agrees, at the first meeting in May. If that'll work out. We'll do the 6-year plan public hearing. We'll put the advertisements out. I'll get a draft plan. We still have the next half of City Church Road and the rest of Yellow Sulphur Road, but I think there is room to add a couple more unpaved roads to your plan for the 6-year plan. So we'll take public comment, and there will be no action needed at the next meeting after the public hearing. We'll take comment and maybe work with a couple board members and come up with a resolution to pass at the June meeting. So that's all I have for updates. I'll take any questions that the board might have.
Start off with Supervisor Fidzikowski.
I appreciate what you're doing down there on that bridge, and yeah, I did get the email from Ken King, and I realize it takes a lot to get that kind of work done, and then now to have to go back and to correct some things. I know it's tedious and takes a while, but I've already contacted some of the folks that live up there and told them gotta be a little patient. But I do appreciate that. You mentioned the paving down on 460 in Shawsville. Are you all going to pave the whole section, the whole 45 zone through?
I'm not sure exactly
on
what
the
sections
eastbound?
are on there. I can get that, the limits.
Well, I mean,
the sections.
I had to smile because the section that was done first, I thought was in the best shape. The one before it, just on the west, to the west of Allegheny Springs Road, that's the one that had the pavement problems. But I was just curious if the whole thing was going to be done, because I think, don't you try to do one side and then the next year or following year do the other side?
It depends on the ratings, and that's the thing. The schedules are put together in the summer. We're starting to get ready to work on next year's schedule. So the roads are getting paved were decided last year based on the ratings that we had.
Okay. And another paving question, because I don't remember last year, I know it was discussed before I started on the board about maybe doing that section of Boners Run before the bridge.
Yes.
In rural rustic or something. Is that on a schedule?
It's not.
Okay.
We had a revenue sharing project to do that. There were some right-of-way issues, and we decided to take that revenue sharing money and move it, do some kind of work, whether it be paving or something else, further up the road. We couldn't get it worked out to do that section there.
Okay. Yeah, I remember something being discussed about it, and I couldn't remember what the resolution was.
It was a right-of-way thing. That's not unusual. Sometimes you start a project, but if you run into right-of-way issues, you just have to move on.
It was something that I had some questions from citizens on, so I thought I'd run it by you. Yeah. But I want to thank you for all the tree trimming you've done from the bottom of the mountain all the way to the county line. It looks great. I mean, something that was really needed. I think we would have really had some serious problems through this last storm if we hadn't done all that trimming, but it does. It looks very good.
Thank you.
And the storm cleanup, I know you guys have had your hands full with that. I did go by a residence yesterday on Brake Road, 340 Brake Road. There's a tree that has come down, but it hasn't come down all the way yet, and it's heading for the road. It's hanging over the road. If you do still have that crew, I know they came down Mount Pleasant the other day, I think Friday, with a bucket truck and everything, and they were cleaning up stuff. But if they're still out, if they could
Okay.
run through there.
Yep, we'll have a look at that one.
All right. Well, thank you, David. Appreciate all you do.
Thank you.
Supervisor DeMonts.
I don't often have questions for you, but I actually have one this time. My son practices soccer on fields at Virginia Tech, so I'm using the new interchange pretty regularly, getting him to and from. Some of the other parents on the team have asked me this question a couple of times, and I just don't know the answer. As you're merging back onto 460, headed towards Giles and the North Main interchange, that merge lane is really short. I expect when it's finished, the merge lane will be a little bit longer, but
Yes,
can
it
you
will,
speak to the
yes.
plans for that?
Yeah, they're working on that now. It'll go beyond or go up right about to where the old Southgate was.
Okay.
So yeah, and it's a matter of not doing that until you get all of the rest of that section of Southgate torn out.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate
plans
that.
are
That
to have
it'll
it
give me
all-
an answer to say
Yeah.
it'll be extended. It's just
Yeah.
going to take some time.
It is, I agree. It is. It's
a little
that's
scary.
The first thing I noticed when I drove it too.
Thank you.
Supervisor Biggs.
Just sort of a follow-up. What is the time frame to get all that complete? Or
I don't know if
That
there's an
you're
interim
thinking.
time frame for that particular one. I mean, the project itself still has quite a lot of time
Yeah.
on it because it's all that's involved with that is tearing up all of Old Southgate, and there's a lot of landscaping, and there's a lot of work still on the main contract. The only interim date I know of was to get it open by late fall last year, which we hit. But I'll check and see. They have a weekly schedule and monthly schedules, and so I'll find out when they've got that
Thank you.
schedule, that particular part.
Thanks for everything you do. It's been a sort of a hard winter lately.
It's been an interesting winter, yes.
Supervisor Bone.
On Nellie's Cave Road, around 1400, there's another tree, just like Supervisor Fidzikowski mentioned, that is coming down. It's probably at about 30 degrees right now and above the road.
1400, you said?
Right around 14. It's
Okay.
about a tenth of a mile before Woodland Hills. And then last time I asked you about Luster's Gate, and I see that you did some pothole filling. Last time I asked you about how it seemed like the road was prematurely degrading.
Yeah, that's not the section that was paved last year, so.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't know when the last time that one was done, and I'm not sure if this, I'll find out what the schedule is and see if it's on this year's schedule or not.
That's all I have. Thank you for what you do.
Supervisor Shepherd.
Thank you for all the work that VDOT's done pushing snow. I used to do that, so I know what a pain that is. And I appreciate the work on the brush. There's a section of Long Shop Road that's on that steep section where that hairpin turn is. That's still got some brush on it, and I assume you'll get to that. There's some brush hanging over the road right at that biggest pond after you pass that. It's small, but it hits the top of the bus when I go by, and I'm afraid it's going to knock the antenna off. Another place I was going to ask you about, and I don't know if you can do anything about this or not, on McCoy Road, right after you get onto McCoy Road, and it's actually going the side going back toward Price's Fork, there's a hedge on somebody's at one of those houses that's even in good weather's hanging out over the road, and when it gets wet or ice or snow, then it's really out in the road, and if you're in a big vehicle, you have to go into the other lane to miss it or knock the mirrors off. And I know that because I did that last winter. So is there anything that can be done about that?
We can't, we just don't go up and start cutting on people's, even if it's hanging into the right of it, we try to work with them. And
I don't know that
we can contact them, talk with them. We do that quite frequently.
I don't know that there's anybody living in the house, to be honest with you.
They might not care if people think so they didn't do it.
And then the last question. Do you have a date when you'll break ground in front of Price's Fork, the old school?
No, I'm not sure when that is. I know that's a revenue sharing project,
right,
and I think that's even locally administered. So I think the county is going to be or putting that out to bid. They're administering the advertisement of that.
Okay, that's all I have.
But we have people in our office that are working on that project, and I'll find out that date. I can find it out pretty easily.
Okay. David, I don't have any questions for you, although I
Hello.
Oh, sorry. I made a terrible mistake. Supervisor King, do you have any questions?
Well, I done forgot now. No, I just want to tell you, the crew that you had doing snow removal from Christiansburg out through towards Floyd and all, just keep them out there, okay?
Yeah, they need to,
Yeah. They done a really good job.
thank you.
Really courteous people, too.
Good, thank you very much. I'll pass that along. They've been
Thank
working long hours.
Now you can go.
Thanks, Todd. And I apologize. David, thank you very much for being here tonight. And again, thank your staff for the good job with all the bad weather. And I know there were a lot of trees down. And so thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you all.
Next item on the agenda is you.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is an alternate form of county government presentation by Supervisor Chris Tuck.
You get a lawyer, you get a legal pad. It's part of the beast, I guess. I want to start off a little bit. And first, thank you to Supervisor Motts and Vice Chair, my fellow supervisors, and ladies and gentlemen here are present. I'd just like to start off with a little bit of background. First, my own biases, my own background. I'm a history major, and I knew before Dr. Holt came and spoke to us about the bird machine and the way constitutional officers were utilized to keep the bird machine and that party in place for decades. I also had family members who were victims of that bird machine, who weren't allowed to go to certain schools, weren't allowed to go to certain restaurants, and weren't allowed to be able to vote. And so I have that bias. I bring that to the table. I know that. I'm also an attorney who's in the courthouses throughout the New River Valley on a regular basis. I have seen some outstanding constitutional officers who work incredibly hard and to serve their citizens. But we also only need to look next door to Giles County to see the treasurer who took a full-time job in Craig County while maintaining the treasurers. I also dealt, by going in and out of those courthouses, I see those employees that live in fear about whether they're going to have a job at the next election, whether they have to support one constitutional officer, and if they don't support them, then they might not have a job, but if they do support them and the other person wins, they're out of a job. Those kind of things bother me. I never thought that anybody should be hired or fired just because of their political beliefs. And so I come to the table with those prejudices. And because of that, perhaps I don't hold those constitutional officers in high reverence. I admit that. I look at those, and just like Dr. Holt said, those are creations of something that took place after the Civil War. And I also went to a lot of classes, and the government classes that Steve and Sarah just recently went to. And one of the things that they had talked about were alternative forms of government. And when I heard that both the Treasurer and Commissioner of Revenue were talking about not running again and retiring, I thought that there was a unique opportunity, that because both of them would not be running, it wouldn't be removing someone from office, and it wouldn't be seen as partisan. Rather, that it would be an honest debate about how government should proceed. But I didn't start on that September 11th date that I asked if there was a consensus. I started meeting these folks. I met with Helen several different times. And she and I developed a very good working relationship when we were going through proration. And you, those of you who were on the board at that point in time, remember that there were folks that said that she didn't know what she was talking about, that she would have to have 4 employees. And she said, no, I can do it with 1. And you know what? Helen Roy, Democrat, did it with 1 and kept her word. And she did it well. And you know, we get emails about a lot of different things and a lot of different complaints. And I dare say I have yet to have a single complaint about proration and the way she's implemented it. Not one phone call, not one letter, not one email. So in speaking with her, she and I chatted, and she was worried about her employees, just like I was worried about those employees. And I said, listen, if you can stay on the sidelines and not get politically involved, I'll give you my word that I will do everything I possibly can to make sure that you don't lose a single employee, that we don't lay a single person off. And she said, I think I can do that. Now, she changed her mind. And there's nothing wrong with changing your mind. She thought about it and she realized Chris Tuck is just one vote. He's not for it. And I can give her my word, and I would have kept it and done everything I could. But if there were 4 that wanted to lay off folks, they could have. She also recognized that Chris Tuck may not get reelected. Chris Tuck will be up in about 2 years about the same time. Or Chris Tuck may not run again. And so she had a commitment also to that office. She's worked in that office for a long time. And it's helped, she's become part of that office. So I don't begrudge her for changing her mind in any way, shape, or form. So when we look at that, but when I came and brought that up on September 11th, I did think at that point in time that we had an honest chance to not be partisan, to be able to move forward on that basis. So on that September 11th night, and I do have access to those videos, if anybody would like them, I've got them all. If we want to click on them, they are quite long. I asked, and all seven members said, yes, we are willing to explore this. We're willing to look at this. And I thought, okay, it's going forward on a bipartisan fashion in an appropriate way. We went ahead, and in November, we agreed unanimously to table it until January of 2018. On January the 9th, we had another meeting, and I asked, do we, not just Chris Tuck one, not just Todd King or one person, but do we as a board want to go forward and continue to gather information? On January the 9th, 2018, we agreed we did. And so we had been gathering information up over the time period. There were some negatives that were brought out about the one government. The cost savings might not be what we had hoped. We would all be up for re-election afterwards. There would be a loss of ability to vote on these officers. And again, I have my own prejudices, but these are actual items that we could debate that aren't a matter of partisanship. I've never missed an election that I know of. I voted in every local, every state, and every federal. I understood that, but I believe there were a lot of benefits. The positives about moving forward were a streamlined, efficient government, less employee hires in the future. We already have before us in this budget a request for 3 additional employees in the treasurer's office. I hope that we might not lay people off, but maybe didn't have to hire people in the future. I heard about and learned about investing. We set aside $1.5 million for schools for future capital. We heard about how other localities invest that money at a much higher interest rate. We looked at, and I realized that by doing this, we could avoid issues like they had over in Giles County. And we could avoid issues where constitutional officers under the law don't have to show up to work. And sometimes those positions do get abused. But most importantly, every one of those employees would have the same rights as any other county employee. My heart tells me that voting for that is the right thing to do. But my head says otherwise. This issue has clearly become partisan. That was never my intent. When I saw the flyer from one of our chairs of our local parties, I knew it had become partisan. I read some of the comments. I have friends who are Democratic Party members and who like to tease me a little bit. and were saying things and sending it. And it was very clear that the narrative that was out there was that somehow the Republicans, and specifically myself, were trying to take over local government. Then there's the misinformation, and I assume by the associations that were involved. Our sheriff has been contacted twice saying that we, the Board of Supervisors, are trying to remove him. He's been contacted twice saying that that was the case. He's called me twice, and I've said, I have never heard a single supervisor, and that has never been brought up. But yet, he was being contacted by the association saying, or association saying, they're going to try to remove you. The misinformation. And there's a lady present tonight. She's a sweet lady, seems very kind, and said it was terrible that we had filed suit against Helen Roy. And I sat there and I thought, wait a minute, we've never sued Helen Roy. That hadn't happened. But clearly, somebody had been providing her misinformation. I don't know who it was, but it was out there. And as we have seen, misinformation spreads much faster than the truth. Well, then we as a Board of Supervisors received a letter from the association's attorney. My response was probably very different than anybody else because I'm an attorney. And my first thoughts were I picked up the phone and I called Marty. And I said, Marty, did you give them permission to contact me directly? I'm your client. And Marty said, no, he didn't. Now you may say, well, what's the big deal? I serve as guardian ad litem for children in divorce cases and abuse and neglect. And before I can even contact their parents, even though I'm representing the child, I have to get their attorney's permission to be able to speak with their client. Now, you don't have to take Chris Tuck's word for it, because one of the things I did was serve on the disciplinary committee for 6 years. And one of the things I learned with the Virginia State Bar is that you can get an opinion from the Virginia State Bar. And so I submitted the following ethics question: contacting an elected public official who's represented by counsel. The hypothetical continues. Can I contact an elected public official on behalf of my client with potential litigation on the horizon when I am aware that that public official is represented by the government attorney on the matter I am contacting them about? Further, the information would be my detailed legal evaluation of applicable statutes, that if this governmental body proceeds in the direction it is going, it would be a violation of the laws of Virginia. This information is in direct contradiction with the legal advice that has been publicly given by the elected official's attorney, and the contact would be to the government attorney, but copying the official. I sent that on a Friday at 4:30. Within 5 minutes, the State Bar had responded. Their response: no, you cannot have this contact. You cannot communicate with represented persons about a matter on which he or she is represented without the consent of counsel. Do I believe that they will push the edge of the envelope? Absolutely. Because if they're willing to push the edge of their ethics to set forth their agenda, do I believe that they will continue to do that? I do. As far as, again, this is my head talking. I had a lady that came into my office recently and wanted to bring a civil lawsuit over $1,000. I explained to her that she might not win, and I didn't think she was going to win, and her legal fees would be over $1,500. It didn't make sense, but she wanted to proceed anyways. It was a matter of principle. And I have no problems with proceeding on a matter of principle. That was her decision financially. That's something that she gets to make. But when we're proceeding on principle, I would be spending taxpayer money. And at the end, when I know that if there were 4 or even 5 votes, but it wasn't going forward on a bipartisan basis, those who would speak out in favor of it are restricted by the statute that we can no longer advocate for that position. And I sit there and wonder, is that part of the bird machine to make sure and quiet people's voices, to terminate their First Amendment rights. I have questions about whether that statute is constitutional. But when I look at those factors, and I may be overreaching when I say this, but I will be asking you not to put forth a motion to change form of government. I will be asking you, and I'm telling each one of you, that I will not vote in favor of it. And while I believe in my heart it is the right thing to do, I know that in November, if no one can advocate for this position, with the misinformation that is currently out there, with it being a partisan issue, that it will not pass. And unfortunately, even though I have the utmost faith in our attorney's position and have very little faith in theirs, I believe we'll win that legal battle, but we would end up losing in November on the referendum. And when we lose, we would be losing taxpayer money. Now, I don't want to leave you on that note, because it's always harder to go with your head than your heart. So I would like to focus and end on some positives. One, I've had the opportunity to talk with Helen on several different occasions, and she has said the communication between her office and the Treasurer's office has improved. If nothing else, this process has helped the communication between their offices. But we have learned so much, and knowledge is power. We know about investing money for our citizens and for our schools. We know that banking bids should go out every year because we watch presentation after presentation after presentation. And when we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we're talking about a few $100,000 tonight later in the budget to pay for SROs, if we had better interest, we could be paying for those without even talking about a tax increase. We know that tax sales should be conducted on a regular basis. So we have that knowledge. And we also have a better working relationship, hopefully, with the Treasurer's Office and the Commissioner of Revenue. So I've made my presentation. I do have copies if anyone would like in regards to the ethics opinion from the State Bar, but I'm also happy to try to answer any questions that any of you might have.
Supervisor Biggs, do you have any questions?
Well, I would thank you for your presentation, and I'm in total agreement with you that we don't proceed with this. I've always felt that way for various other reasons. Thank you.
Supervisor Bone?
I don't have any questions, but I agree with you. I don't think that we should proceed. Thank you.
Supervisor Shepherd?
I don't have any questions. I have a couple of comments. I'd just like to say thank you for bringing this up. I learned a lot, and I'm quite sure probably most of the others did too. And like you, I never even perceived it as being bipartisan. That never crossed my mind. And I do feel like you that in my heart, I feel like down the road, after all the growing pains were over, it would be a lot better system. But getting there would be a big deal, I believe. So I'm in agreement with you to drop it.
Thank you.
Supervisor King?
Oh, you ready?
I'm here. Hey, look, if you're making a presentation, you got to be ready to answer some questions. I'm ready.
Now, I just want to tell you, Chris, I appreciate you bringing this out forward to all of us. I know I thought hard about it. I really have. I think in the long run, your feelings is about like mine. We wanted to look after the employees. The employees would have a stage they could go through before they could be dismissed. I mean, they really would. You know, a constitutional officer, I'm not saying none of them would do it, but they could do it. I mean, you know, if I got elected as Commissioner of Revenue, I could go in there and let them all go, and nothing could be done. And I think your heart is in the right place, wanting to look after them employees and look after Montgomery County. And for me, myself, I want to tell you, I appreciate it, but I will not be voting to move forward. Thank you.
Supervisor Fidzikowski?
Chris, I want to thank you also for bringing it to our attention. I thought when we first started discussing this, I was looking for efficiency, for better service. I was looking for cost savings. I was looking for that job security for the employees. And I was looking for more accountability than what is even in place for an elected official. Virginia has many forms of government. I know of at least 5, maybe there's 7. They were all approved by the General Assembly. Why would your General Assembly approve a different form of government that eliminates those 2 offices if it's horrible and taking your rights away? It doesn't. As a matter of fact, we had guests come here from those executive forms of government, and they spoke to us. They don't have any abuse. They don't have any corruption. There's no rights violated. It's a different form of government, and the General Assembly passed that because there are different communities throughout Virginia, and some forms work better for those communities. I was looking for all those benefits for our community. After listening to our guests that came, I would have to agree. It's probably not cost effective. We wouldn't realize all those benefits, but we had to look into it, and I think that was time and money well spent to at least look into it for our citizens. The other thing that bothers me about this whole thing, and I read the comments too, I got the emails, and people were basically accusing the Board of Supervisors of taking away their rights. All we were doing was voting for a referendum. And who gets to choose that? Not the Board of Supervisors. It's the voters. The very people that didn't want this could have voted against it. So if anybody was cheated, I'm thinking the voters were cheated, because now they don't get an opinion to weigh in on it. But thank you.
I'm not used to being able to be the last one to speak. I also want to thank you for not just your presentation, but also for what you said originally, was that you wanted 7 people to be in favor of this, and you stuck by your word. And I would have been one of the votes against it. And I'm glad that, you know, what we'd originally discussed came through to the end. This has been a very difficult but very educational process. I often liken this job to spot education on a lot of different topics. And this is something I never would have had the opportunity or ability to study and understand without this board doing it. I am glad that we're apparently reaching the conclusion of this discussion, but I also, through this process, have been very grateful to find out how lucky we are with our constitutional officers that we have. I think they're wonderful. I think they provided a lot of information to us as we've gone through this process, and we're really very lucky to have them and their staffs in their office. I think we've got 2 very well operating departments. I know the next thing on our agenda is a presentation between our Commissioner of Revenue and our Treasurer, so I look forward to hearing what they have to say. But thank you very much for what you said tonight, Chris, and for also staying by your word that you wanted 7 people to support this, or you didn't want it to move forward. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Vice Chair DeMotts, may I add one thing?
Sure.
I want to add that this opens up a communication way for us as board members to really talk to our constitutional officers and to understand their jobs as elected officials as we would like them to understand our jobs as elected officials. Because everyone in this building, regardless of their staff or constitutional officers, or if they're in the courthouse or they're sitting up here, are here for one reason only, and that's to serve the citizens. So I think that this whole process is a way to proceed in a positive manner to really have some open communication with our constitutional officers that maybe wasn't there before.
Thank you. I wear water on my cell phone. One second. Thank you. All right. Next item is a presentation between our Commissioner of Revenue, Helen Royal, and our Treasurer, Richard Shelton.
I'm going to go first because I'm nervous. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, thank you for allowing me to address you tonight. I have served the citizens of Montgomery County for 32 years as a deputy treasurer, a deputy commissioner, and I am now in my second term as your elected Commissioner of Revenue. My qualifications for successful administration of my office are much like yours, earned largely through experience in doing the job. I have worked diligently over the years to continue my education and professional development in the services of our citizens. I'm a master Commissioner of the Revenue. I strongly believe that the value of constitutional officers far outweigh your concerns. My staff and I are the subject matter experts in this room on property assessments, personal property tax preparation and filing, and various other services offered on behalf of the public. We strive to have technical knowledge needed to get the job done. Deputies in my office work closely on a day-to-day basis with the deputies in the treasurer's office. Mr. Shelton and I work together to uphold our duties and the Constitution of the Commonwealth. I am committed to continuing to address tax-related issues for our citizens. Any action to eliminate this office will likely result in those issues making their way to you. I ask you to consider whether you are willing to answer these matters. I appreciate that so many of you have visited me one-on-one to ask questions and learn about the workings of my office. I urge you to continue the open conversation with me to resolve any issues or any questions you may have. My door is always open to you. I respectfully ask that you not vote, of course that's null now, not vote to change the form of government in Montgomery County to eliminate the offices of Commissioner and Treasurer. I deeply appreciate what you all have done here tonight. My people have heard about this since last September, and we're kind of a family in the office. So what bothers one of us bothers all of us. They were willing to forego a certain job because I wanted a Commissioner of the Revenue. They are the sweetest people in the world and they deserve everybody's respect. Thank you very much.
Okay, hold on. Do you want help? Let's see. I'm trying to go. Consent. Let's see. Supervisor Biggs, do you have any questions?
I thought you all were, if we had questions, that we would address you all in your office or later on, right? Is that correct? Okay. So I'm fine.
Well, so you're fine.
Yeah.
Supervisor Bone, do you have any questions?
No, I just want to thank you for being so open and welcoming when I came to your office and sat down with so many people.
I wish each one of you all would do that. I wish you would. And you'd be more than welcome.
Thank you so much, Helen.
Thank you.
Supervisor Shep.
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you.
Supervisor King.
I don't have no questions, but I can still come visit you, can't I?
Supervisor Fidzikowski.
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor DeMott.
Well, I agree that your employees are some of the sweetest people in the world, but their boss is one of the sweetest people in the world, too. Thank you very much, Helen, for coming tonight and for talking to us. Your passion for your office is very clear, and I think you do a wonderful job.
Helen, and you and I had a lot of discussions. You're excited about implementing some of the things that you heard about.
Yes.
And that you're hoping to do in the next short period of time.
I learned a lot. I did. there were a number of things that I had no idea about. So we will be changing things. I will be part of the stayers, whether y'all want me or not.
Thank you very much. And I really do appreciate when we had speakers coming in, you were present, and I appreciated your being here and listening to what they had to say. And thank you very much. Mr. Shelton?
Okay, it's been a big turnaround here tonight, but I want to say what I came to say. I assume y'all will vote on this a little bit later on. There has been several misconceptions about the office of treasurer and the commissioner. In spite of what you have heard or been told, our offices have always worked together and will continue to work together now and in the future. While our points of view may differ from time to time, our departments work together for the good of Montgomery County. I recommend that the treasurer and the commissioner of the revenue remain as elected positions to better serve the citizens of Montgomery County. For the last 6 months, the board has discussed a change in the form of local government without seeking my input. If you wish to talk to me to get the facts, please contact me by phone or email or come by my office, and that's still open. If you need to talk about something, you can. That's our statement combined. Helen gave hers, I gave mine, but I also have another statement to make. And you can stand here or go, either one. Okay? Okay. My next comment has nothing to do with the commissioner. My comment of our office working together. Since September 2017, there has been an attempt by the board to change our form of government. Over the past several months, points about my office, me, and the decisions I make on a daily basis have been questioned by Mr. Tuck and some of our board members. I have always had and continue to have the best interest of our county in mind in any decision I make for the county. I have always sent out RFPs for bank services. I have negotiated and received higher interest rates paid to the county on our general fund balances. In addition, I recently hired a law firm to handle our next delinquent real estate tax sale. I have documentation to show that I made numerous attempts over the past 11 years to have other real estate tax sales. My efforts were hindered when our county attorney stopped his research on parcels that were eligible to go to sale. 3 years ago, I asked for the board's approval to begin a tax sale, but they were not in agreement on the law firm I picked, and this sale was put on hold. I was elected 15 years ago to serve all the citizens of our county, and I have done just that. I will not have my name nor my office discredited by any accusations that are false and without merit to further an agenda that a change in our form of government is needed. Again, if anyone would like to talk about facts, please contact me by phone, email, or you're welcome to come to my office. Thank you.
Supervisor Bone, do you have any questions?
I want to thank you, Richard, for welcoming me into your office so that I could ask you lots of questions about what you do. And I have discovered a lot of respect for our constitutional officers and offices, and I appreciate you being so open and welcoming. Thank you.
Welcome you there, and I'm glad you were. 2 Board of Supervisors came to my office. I appreciate you being one of the 2, and 5 I have not seen. But thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Supervisor Shepherd.
I appreciate you coming and talking to us. I just have one question. You said you had put our banking out to bid. When was that?
I do that every 5 years. The last one was 3 years ago. We're getting ready to go into our 3rd year on the contract. The contract is for 5 years with 1 year increments, meaning that we can relook at that, which we do each year, and we can decide to continue or to change. And I have no reason to change at this time for the services that are offered by our current bank.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you.
Supervisor King.
I just got a couple comments. Last year I did come down to your office, me and you sit in the back room and talk for over an hour.
Okay, I don't know what time last year that was, but I was talking about this issue alone. But I'm glad you did. I know from time to time we have talked, but I was talking about the board who came during the 6 months of issues, and I could have given facts and given you anything you or any board member needed at that time. But come back to see me.
One more comment. I did get upset at our last meeting or so. I think we should have used a local law firm for the delinquent taxes.
That's your choice and your decision. But that particular law firm, I wouldn't want to answer any questions. The taxpayer would have paid more in fees at the end if it went to a tax sale, and their accounting system was not compatible to Montgomery County's munis system, and that's 2 reasons why I went with a different firm.
Supervisor Fitzgerald.
Yes, sir. Do you know if any notification letters have gone out to people from the law firm that you hired?
They'll be going out the 1st of next week.
Okay.
They're collecting the data. Many times the board thinks that you can make a decision and tomorrow it can be done. It takes time to orchestrate a new procedure and get it to the right place. But we've been in contact with him numerous times, and letters will be in the mail next week.
Okay, yeah, I understand that. I just was wondering when that would be.
Oh yeah,
Thank you.
it's in process in a good working environment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor DeMont.
Hi, Richard. And I know I have not come down to visit you, and one of the reasons that I didn't was during this whole process I've been very vocally against the idea of changing the form of government. And so I didn't really want to come trouble you, but I would like to take advantage of the opportunity to come spend some time with you, maybe one afternoon in the coming weeks,
Please do.
and learn a little bit more about how your office operates. I think that would be very beneficial to me.
I've had an open door policy in my office ever since I became treasurer for citizens. Anyone can always come to my office. Open door policy anytime.
Well, I certainly appreciate that.
For you to come in.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate that. Thank you for everything that you've been doing and continue to do. Thank you for getting the ball rolling on having a tax sale too. I really look forward to bringing in some more revenue and hopefully helping our budget make ends meet a little bit better.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, let's start off. You said that you put him out to bid. Oh, excuse me. Supervisor, Supervisor King is bipartisan. I've been skipping everybody. Supervisor Biggs.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank both of you for coming tonight. I want to tell you that, as well as all the other constitutional officers in the county, whether it be the sheriff, the Commonwealth attorney, or the clerk of court, I respect your office and I respect, what goes on in your office, and I enjoyed coming to visit both of you. And the interesting thing about me coming to visit you and having discussions with you is, even though I'm the longest serving member on this board, I still learned a lot from coming and talking to you. And that even made it more imperative that we continue the conversation. And so I want to thank both of you for the time that you allotted me. And I think that this, like I said before, opens up an avenue for us to continue the conversation. you know, I think some of the ideas that came out from all of this are interesting for you all to explore too. And I look forward to serving alongside of you for the rest of the time that you're in office. And thank you very much.
I appreciate you coming by my office a few weeks ago, spending some time with me, and we've had several conversations by phone. But I thank you. Come, and any board member is welcome anytime. It's always been that way. I've, over the years, have asked for the board to come, but thank you.
As far as interest on the first $8 million, do we get any interest as their current deal on the first $8 million?
We don't, and you're aware of that. That takes care of the services that we get from the bank before we pay for those services. And you particularly did like us paying for services, so now X number million are in there to pay for those services. Any bank will do that one way or the other. Banks will get paid.
Okay, so we don't get any interest on the first $8 million. We get a 1.5% on everything, and our average balance is somewhere between 30 and the very high end would be 70. I think the average balance is between 30 and 40 million. Is that correct?
Not really. Right now, got a statement this morning, 55 million what we have in general funds as of today. It may be gone tomorrow. I don't know.
I hope it's not gone tomorrow.
To spend. Finance knows that. But
all right.
The rate at 1.5% is really a good rate. You have heard from Prince William County. They have such a large staff, and they have people that totally invest their money. You had asked, and with someone doing investments, switching every day, looking at every investment they make, they made 2% over like $1 billion. So with ours, 1.5% is a great rate increase. We've increased through interest over $1 million extra dollars the last couple years. And before going to negotiation with the bank, I went to our finance department, talked to them. They said if we could get 1.35% interest for the next couple years, that would be good. I took that, used that. I figured 1.60 would be better. We negotiated, and I came up with 1.5%. So I do negotiation. I do get a better rate for the county.
All right. Do you understand we belong to a consortium that allows us to get 1.59% interest?
Well, right now I'm satisfied. The board has trusted me over the years with respect.
My question was, are you aware of that?
My question is, and I'm going to answer it, I feel good with our investment. Right now, that's where we'll stay.
Okay. Are you aware, you mentioned a larger locality, but are you aware, and I've got a text message from the mayor of Radford, that they get 3% on their money?
Well, that's Radford. Look at the small localities.
Okay.
Seems like, Mr. Todd, you love small localities like the city of Radford, the county of Giles, and you can't compare what Montgomery County does with the smaller cities and counties.
Okay, and then if we look at some of the investments that Albemarle County made, they had set their funds into investments, and they had received over $300,000 this year alone, and that was part of their presentation. In addition to that, that same consortium for long-term provides interest at 2%. Isn't that correct?
I'm not exactly sure. I heard mention those figures, but like all these figures that I've heard the last several weeks and months have been distorted by members, and I'm just
asking those questions that
yeah,
the consortium that we bought.
Before, no disrespect, but if you have questions and concerns, come to my office, give me a call or email me, and I'll be back in touch. I've answered more questions for you than I've intended for anyone, so I'm done.
Well, now you're here in front of a public body, and for transparency, some of the things that we do is to have government out in the open. And so that's part of the questions I'm asking you is...
Go ahead and continue.
And so, on that you had mentioned that we hadn't brought this up, but we've got video where we had you here a couple years ago when Supervisor DeMontz and Supervisor Shepard, and we asked you to put it out to bid.
I did.
Do you have...
I don't know why you, the chair, don't know that.
Well, can you please provide me a copy of the RFP?
What I do.
Can you please provide me a copy of the RFP?
One of the reasons you don't know what I do.
Can you please provide me a copy of the RFP?
You never come by to see what we do.
Mr. Shelton, you know that's not correct. Last summer I was in your office.
I know you were. And it didn't end very well, did it?
No, you raised your voice and I ended up leaving.
I didn't raise my voice. This is my voice.
Okay.
The only way I can speak is like that.
Okay.
Right there. You turn it. I've got employees here that tell you differently about my actions and your actions.
Well,
we'll leave it there.
So my basic questions for you in regards to this is we're asking you, I'm asking simply, if you put it out the bid, there should be an RFP, and if there's an RFP, I'll be happy to say I was wrong. Can you provide me an RFP that you put out last year?
We sent the RFP out when we did it 3 years ago. Okay. That's the same RFP. You have a copy. It was sent to you by Mary Biggs because we sent it to her.
That was, I believe, in 2000. I think the RFP was 2013.
That's when Stellar One took up.
So that would be 5 years ago.
Stellar One turned into Union Bank. And we had to make some changes during that time.
Okay, but that would be, those, at least the ones that Ms. Biggs provided me, I can double check, were from about 5 years ago.
We have current RFPs.
Okay. Do you mind providing those current RFPs? When you sent one out last year,
it's
and you sent
years old.
It's several years old. So you didn't put it out to bid last year.
I told you when I first started talking, we do it every 5 years with 1 year increments.
Okay.
And that's what we've done.
And you were present for some of these where a lot of other folks, 1.5% interest with nothing on the first $8 million seemed to be very low compared to the other localities that were getting much higher rates.
It depends on the banks in the area. Other banks in our area are not large enough that they can distribute funds out and make money.
All right. Do you know that Supervisor King, when this issue was up, he talked with banks, and this issue came to light, and you presented yourself in 2016, we had banks approaching us, and that's when we asked you to put it out to bid back in 2016.
They never came to my
No, but we asked you to put it out to bid, and we offered our staff up to help you put it out for bid, and you didn't put it out.
I said I would consider it, and that's my authority in the state of Virginia to make those investments.
Right, and it is, and that's why we were asking, and I can't tell you to put it out to bid, but I can ask you to put it out to bid.
Yes, and you did, and I did.
You didn't. You just got done saying you didn't. It's in 2016. You didn't put an RFP out when you came.
You've got a misunderstanding of that. I'll provide that information for you. I know what you're trying to do, and I'm not going to let you do it.
All I'm asking is simple, basic questions. But Mr. Shelton, thank you very much. Does this spark any other questions from any other supervisors?
Thank you.
I'd like to make one comment.
Yes, please.
To the staff of the Commission Revenue and the Treasurer's Office, most of you know me, and I come and visit you, and I do appreciate everything you do. I honestly do. This has nothing whatsoever to do with y'all. And thank you for what you do.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda would be public address. Well, okay, let's take, I tell you what, I have a it looks like 8:27. Let's get back at, let's take a good 13-minute break. What do you say? And come back at 8:40.
Did we go out?
Is that right?
8:40. 13:27, yes, 40.
I'm going to call this meeting back to order. We've got all of us up here. And the next item up on our agenda is public address. There are 3 individuals that are signed up. This is the board's time to listen to you. We do not typically respond to individuals. We will ask you to state your name and address, and you're going to have 5 minutes. The first speaker is Julia Lewis. Ms. Lewis, would you please come forward?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, quite frankly, I'm quite suspicious over wanting to make this change because Helen and Richard are both Democrats. And also, Chris Tuck, since you have been chairman of the Board of Supervisors, the board has been very partisan. And it wasn't like that when Bill Brown, Annette Perkins, and Jim Politis were chairs. And it seems like every vote that is taken is 4-3, 4-3, 4-3, 4-3, 4-3. And frankly, I like the idea of having the privilege to elect the Commissioner of Revenue and the Treasurer, the Commonwealth Attorney, the Sheriff, etc. And I don't like the idea of having to appoint if you decide to change the system. But let's just think about it. Maybe we should start appointing our supervisors. Maybe the governor would be the one to appoint. So anyway, I'll just end with saying that I like the system the way it is, and that I hope that it will continue. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It's difficult to read the writing. It's Chris, and it looks like W-A, is it Z? I'm sorry, sir. It's hard to read your writing.
Chris Waltz.
Waltz. Okay, thank you. State your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Chris Waltz, 1370 Wrigley Street, Christiansburg. I again get up to say that I'm opposed to that. I like being able to elect people, and taking that out of the voters' hands and consolidating it into 7 people's hands that are also elected. But when you do that, it seems like a power grab. And from what I've seen in government, a lot of times when you have that, it leads to less accountability because there are ways for you to hide things from public view. And I think that everything is better when it's brought before the public that has to do with government. And this isn't the end of it. If you really want it, and you think this is the best idea, and you think the voters are getting screwed because you're not doing it, you can get 8,607 signatures. Buy you a pair of Reeboks, some Dr. Scholl's, get you a clipboard, get you a petition form. If you really feel that strongly that this should be on the ballot, that's the way to do it. Thank you.
The next is Jake Petzold. Lift the mic up just a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Jake Petzold. I'm at 3625 Onyx Drive, and that is in Montgomery County off of 114. Just wanted to point that out. Last week during the public forum, as well as on several media posts, advocates for higher taxes referenced our friends in Pulaski as an example of why we should increase the tax rate. It should be noted, however, that the tax rate in Pulaski is currently 64 cents per 100. And with the proposed maximum raise of 13 cents that did pass the ballot referendum, it would still be 12 cents lower than Montgomery County. Simply put, Montgomery County tax rates are some of the highest in the area. 89 cents on the dollar is still 12 cents higher than our friends across the river, even after their tax increase. I urge the board to find other ways to pay for increased school security and not raise taxes on the people of Montgomery County. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all the individuals that are signed up to speak. If there are other individuals that like to address the board, please come forward, and you will have to please state your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Hi,
County I came, so I got some, might as well come back up. I'm Kelly Pleasant. I live at 2737 Old Fort Road in Blacksburg. And since this is the last chance we'll get to speak on it, I'm going to say one more time that I support, my family supports, my husband supports a tax increase this year. And I really, really appreciate you bringing it forward so that we had this opportunity to talk about it. I believe it's important. I believe it's the right time. And again, I'm not all that concerned about other counties. Other counties have different circumstances than we do. I'm a Montgomery County citizen. These are Montgomery County rules and Montgomery County laws and Montgomery County tax rates. And I believe the time is now. I really invite all of you. I'll do that too. I'll invite all of you to my classroom anytime. Okay? I hear that a lot. A lot of my friends say to me, I wonder if some of these people have been in a school for a while. Because schools look a lot different than they did when I was a student. As a matter of fact, my friends and I sort of laughed the other day and thought, you know, there's probably a lot of people who think teachers are overpaid. Because maybe when they went to school, they remember desks in rows. They remember textbooks that were opened and you just copied out of the text. That's what I did. Copied out of the textbook and on notebook paper, and then you graded the person next to yours. And you know, I guess if that was your experience, then you might think, well, shoot, I'd like that job, just sitting up at the front of the room and they did all the work. I sort of went to that elementary school. But that's not what's happening in elementary schools anymore. That's not what's happening in middle schools. That's not what's happening in high schools. We work extremely hard. We have a lot of extra education that we have to get these days. We're dealing with lots of other issues in our classrooms other than education. So just keep that in mind. But please, you're always welcome to come into my classroom at any time. I also have an open door. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Are there other individuals that would like to come forward and address the board? Mr. Turner, please state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Bill Turner. I live at 1690 Ellett Road in Christiansburg. As to the topic at hand about the constitutional officers, I have to agree with Mr. Fichikowski that the voters are the ones who missed out on this one. They didn't get a chance to decide. I think y'all were looking at the best for the county overall. But I would like to see it stay as it is, at least for the time being, until there can be very solid ground to stand on saying that this is the right move at the right time. And apparently this is not the right time, so I'd say that we kind of feel that the matter is over and done for the moment. As to the resource officers for the schools, I'm in favor of the tax increase. It means we get them. You may have other plans in mind that I have not been privy to, but rather than deal with taking money away from the schools to provide the funds for this, I would rather see the schools fully funded, and I would also like to see those resource officers be put in. If it needs a tax increase, I'm willing to do it. I don't think that one little step at that point in time is going to be breaking the bank of anybody, and anybody who is in tough financial straits has an avenue in which to take to see about getting some relief. On the other side of the coin of that same matter of why resource officers are wanted in the schools, I don't look at it as necessarily a way of protecting the students. Yes, a person there of that caliber is a good deterrent, but again, an individual going up against a Glock, against an assault rifle with multiple bullets able to be shot at any quick moment, it's a hard thing to look at, but it is a deterrent. But the SRO officers, to me, are much more important based on the interaction that they have with the students. In many families, unfortunately, police officers are frowned upon. And we need to be able to have these children be able to decide on their own, even at a young age, that, well, maybe somebody in authority is not really telling me everything as it is, because that's not what I see when I go to school and I talk with my resource officer. He's open, or she is open. They are talking and communicating with the students, interacting with the students, and that to me is the important issue. Not because they're there for protection, but more so because they're there to show our students to what a real police officer is and does. Another note, we've got the best police force and personnel that any county, town could ask for. I highly esteem these gentlemen and ladies because they do put their lives on the line every day. And I just think that we need to give them the respect, give them the money that they need in order to provide the services that they do. I listen to them on a scanner quite a lot. And to hear what some of them go through just in the course of a day when the weather is not real good and they have to hit 150 accidents, it's really phenomenal that they do the job that they do. They handle it, and they handle it well. The point about guns, I know, is a very hot topic to a lot of people, but we do need to work also on the issue of mental illness. I think we can all look at past situations that we've encountered in this country and see that it is definitely a situation where mental illness is the issue. And we need to do everything we can in helping young people early in life when these flags come up to be able to reach out to them and help them to progress. But before I have my red light come on and say I can't say anymore, fully fund our schools. We've got 3 institutions of higher learning here, and we need to be able to give all of our young students every opportunity to be able to further their education. Thank you.
Thank you. I know there was a lady that came up, Cindy.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. Please state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Cindy Turner, 1690 Ellett Road in Christiansburg. In any issue or topic, there are pros and cons, there's a trade-off and everything. I'll just say that I applaud the decision not to proceed with the change in the constitutional offices. I'm very glad to have seen that take place tonight. Secondly, with respect to the SROs, unfortunately I've not had a chance to absorb the information and all of that like I would like to have, but I'll just say this. I'm always opposed to a tax increase unless it's necessary. And then when the issue with the SROs came along, the safety of our kids trumps that feeling about tax increases. I felt it was absolutely worth it, and I had no qualms with it. It is my understanding, though, that there may be ways to get the SROs without a tax increase. And if that is a possibility, I say that's the way to go. Let's save the tax increase for when and if we have to have it to get through something. Thank you very much. Oh, can I still say something?
Yes, you've got 3 minutes and 40 seconds.
I also want to say that I am very proud of my husband for, although we're a house divided tonight, very proud of the point that he brought up about the interaction with the SROs, because they are much more than a security force or a presence. I have seen multiple SROs in different schools in their interactions with the kids. Many times they are a male figure or a father figure that the kids have never had. They are a good experience as an authority figure. I think we can't say enough about them. So we appreciate all that they do and all that you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you. And you were behind the screen, but I saw you come up, so.
Hello, my name is Diana Richardson, 1431 Breckenridge Drive, Blacksburg, Virginia. And first, so I don't forget it, I want to say that I too am in favor of this tax increase for the education of our children and for the school board. The second thing I'd like to say is thank you for the decision not to eliminate constitutional officers and move it to a staff position. The Virginia Constitution specifically does convey authority for these 5 locally elected constitutional officers, and although there are some who don't participate in it, most of the counties take advantage of this way of governing in Virginia. It has lasted for many, many years, and I think that that is something that we should look at. It's evidently a very good system. Here's the reason I think it is. Constitutional officers are elected as a basic principle of our democratic form of government. And I think it's important that we have separation of powers and checks and balances. It really is a privilege to vote, and I believe it was Mr. Tuck who said that he's always voted. I can't remember a time when I have ever missed voting too. I really think it is very, very important for us to know what's going on and care enough to come out and vote, because I think that is part of our democratic form of government. And, you know, I think since we do, as Virginians, you know, mother of states and all that, take all of this very seriously, I think that taking away our privilege to vote for these 2 constitutional officers is not something to be, I guess, jumped into hastily. And so, again, I want to thank you for not doing that. The point I'd like to make too, I would like to say thank you to the 2 constitutional officers who have come up here tonight and spoken. I have visited their offices as a citizen, and I think that they run their offices well. They do a good job. I know you all, as the board, are privy to things that we aren't, but I do know that our treasurer was elected by an overwhelming majority, one of the reasons being that he has saved the county a lot of money in the past. And I think that that's something that should be regarded. As other people have said, Helen in her 2 terms as the Commissioner of the Revenue is very efficient, effective, and very well liked. My last thing I'd like to say to you all is I was here about a month ago or so when the people from the Commissioner of Revenue and Treasurers Associations were here, and they talked about memorandum of understanding, and you all have talked some tonight about meeting more with the constitutional officers. And I think that is just a really good way to go about this. I think that you all you know, the board and all of the constitutional officers are all serving us and doing a good job in Montgomery County. So I think that if you all can talk and work out ways to you know, work together, I think that would behoove everybody in the county. So thank you for what you do, and I'm looking forward to the things that you're going to do in the future to work together.
Is there any other individuals that would like to address the board? Please state your name and address, and you've got 5 minutes.
Shirley Martin in 1373 Flanagan Drive. And I really appreciate your time to let me speak. The county administrator, Mr. Meadows, did not recommend a real estate increase, but now the school board is asking for more money. The school's overall budget is $109.5 million, while the county currently has a budget of $189 million. We have the tail wagging the dog here. The Board of Supervisors fund the schools better than anyone in the surrounding areas on a per pupil basis. How the money is spent is up to the school board. Teachers' pay may be less, lower than other areas, but the surrounding areas is due to the school board is in charge of the spending of money, and they spend it for other things. The school board needs to take increases in, because teachers deserve raises, and the school board needs to take into account increases for teachers each year when they do their budget, and they need to stick to their budget. And not every time that they don't have enough money in their budget that they come back to the Board of Supervisors to come up with more money by raising taxes. The board would still be giving money to schools, not taking anything away. Teachers could still get raises and step increases. The board kept its word and provided $540,000 in additional funding to the schools at the end of the fiscal year, September, for school capital needs. I was wondering why more citizens had not stood up and talked against this tax increase, but most people said it wouldn't do any good. I told them that we have good and smart supervisors, and they know we don't need a tax increase. I'm opposed to a tax increase, and I am asking the board to vote against it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other citizens that would like to address the board? And if there are some more folks, I'm going to ask them if they will come and right behind on the second row over here, if there's other individuals, so we can go ahead and move forward. Please state your name and address, and you've got 5 minutes.
My name is Paul Hester, and I live at 245 Winsong Lane, Chair of Tucker Membership Board. I appreciate you taking this time, and I do apologize, but public speaking is not my best thing, so I might seem a little nervous up here. Not only am I a citizen of Montgomery County, I'm also an employee of y'all's. I work for the Commissioner of Revenue with Helen, and as an employee, I want to thank y'all for looking out for us, but the one thing I feel that I'm going to go ahead and say that you'd never be able to see is how we interact with the citizens of this county. I'll admit, being in the tax department, nobody comes in there happy. But when they come in and we sit down with them and we explain things to them and let them see what's going on, they are very appreciative and they are happy. And I think that's an important factor that we need to keep. So again, I thank you for your stance that y'all have with going through this. Secondly, not only am I an employee and a citizen, I'm also a father. I have an 8-year-old daughter that goes to Christiansburg Primary, and her safety is the utmost importance to me, as well as her education. So I know a lot of people aren't in favor of a 2-cent increase. I've done the math myself. For the land that I own, it's $26. It's a night out to eat to guarantee that my daughter is safe. So that I'm willing to give. But if for some reason this can't go through, I beg y'all to find a way to get those resource officers in there to keep her safe. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. I believe some other folks came forward. Yes. Mr. Fentress, would you come forward and state your name and address?
Matthew Fentress, 395 Summit Ridge Road, Christiansburg, Virginia. Just to give you a little background on my day, had a meeting in the morning, worked my day, had a meeting in the afternoon, just had a 3-hour training on threat assessment. That's kind of valid, isn't it? And I rushed here because investing in kids matters. I am definitely in support of a tax increase. Thank you all for listening the last few weeks.
Thank you. Is there any other individuals that would like to address the board? I'm not seeing anyone else come forward, so I'll go ahead and close. I saw some movement, but I'll go ahead and close public address. Is there a motion in regards to our consent agenda?
We don't have an addendum.
Right.
So I motion that we table all items on the consent agenda to our next meeting.
Second.
Any discussion?
Well, and the reason being is that we don't have them.
Right.
So people understand why we don't.
Yeah, they're not uploaded to our system, so we didn't review them in time. So
There's a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Aye.
Ms. Bag? Aye. Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Next item, is there a motion to go into work session?
Motion.
Second.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Hold on.
Sorry, I know. I move fast. Speaking of fast, I'm drinking.
could you give him some water? He's like a camel.
No, camels don't drink water.
I'm just building up your reserves.
Oh, okay.
You're saying you're feeling your hump.
There's none left.
Ms. Bag? Aye. Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
7 ayes.
In regards to, obviously, we can, I think at this point in time, skip over alternative form of government in work session and move on to the budget. And I don't know how folks wish to proceed. We can just talk about it. We can address it in, I'm trying to, I may have lost track while I was down below, but I think as far as the budget, it would be, did I leave off or start off with you, Sarah, the last time? Okay.
Come on, Chris.
Right.
You can't keep track of
Well, I was down there for a little while, and that I lost track. So I don't know if we want to go around. I don't know if we want to open it up for discussion. But as far as in regards to the budget, is there anything that you would like to share with the board?
Me?
Yes.
I would like to open it up for discussion because we don't do that very often, actually. But I would like to talk about the schools and supporting the schools in their budget, proposed budget, including raises in the steps for the teachers, among all the other things. And then I would prefer that we have the revenue to cover all recurring expenses as opposed to paying for buses and out of one-time money and the other things that we're saving for the carry forward money. With regards to the SRO officers, I believe that we should collect a committee or put together a committee maybe to examine the whole school safety aspects to make sure that we're doing everything that we can. I know that we're doing a lot of things for school safety, and I like that. But it never hurts to revisit it. And as far as SRO officers, I believe that those should be paid for by the county. And if we need a tax increase in order to do that, I'm all for that. I believe that Craig and his staff have done a fantastic job also as far as proposing our budget this year. I think all the way around, the county and the schools do a fantastic job managing the assets, including our staff, and serve our constituents very well. So that's all I've got.
Supervisor Shepherd?
Mr. Fidzikowski and I met and chatted for over an hour a couple days ago, and we talked a lot about school safety and exactly what that meant and how that would could take place, or maybe shouldn't even, I don't know. One of the things we talked about was the role of an SRO officer, and their role in the beginning is more of a discipline, being in the middle and high schools. They serve the purpose of security, but that's not their main purpose. My wife is a school teacher, and I hear it just about daily. She doesn't have enough time with the kids that she has to do the instructions that she has. So I'm just curious as if there would even be time for the kids to interact with law enforcement to some extent. Steve has a whole lot more information about school safety and some other things that could be done that I was not aware of. One of those things I know, my wife and I have discussed this too, is the windows. If the doors are locked, they just come through the windows. He informed me and enlightened me that there's a material that can be put on the windows that would keep someone from doing that, kind of like a safety glass in your car. It wouldn't be indestructible, but it would most likely keep somebody from just walking in.
Supervisor King?
I just got a few things. We're talking about school funding, and I just want to throw some figures out. I didn't get these, staff did, and I do appreciate it. Montgomery County, for the county funding for schools as a percentage of total school budget operating in debt services, Montgomery County taxpayers pay 51%. Fiscal year 17 and 51% of fiscal 18. City of Salem, fiscal year 17 paid 49% of theirs. Fiscal year 18 they're going to pay 51%. City of Rafford pays 32%. That's their local dollar, 32%. Fiscal year 18, 32%. Roanoke County pays 46%, fiscal year 17. Fiscal year 18, they're going to pay 46%, the same amount. For the total school budget, operating, nutrition, and debt services, percentage total budget for all funds, Montgomery County, 71%. City of Salem, 47%. City of Rafford, 47%. Roanoke County, 59%. I give you these figures because people come in front of us saying that the county taxpayers do not care for schools. They don't fund the schools properly. Each year I've been on this board, we have voted every year to raise their budget. And for somebody to come in here and tell me I do not respect teachers, I don't appreciate that at all. I go to schools. I've had school board members ask me why I go to schools. Why do I even visit them? That's my job. I listen to everybody. And for people to come here and say that, I think it's wrong. Nobody, as I can see on this board, is against education. Me and Miss Bond sat down and had a meeting the other day for almost 2 hours. In my district, Christiansburg, Reiner, Pilot, Plum Creek, there's a lot of people that's on fixed income. We figured up most of them gets a raise a year, $34 after their insurance. Is that correct?
For Social Security
Right.
people, yeah. Mm-hmm. After Medicare. Mm-hmm.
I would invite anybody to come with me in my community, Christiansburg, Pilot, everywhere, and you walk with me, because I still get out and walk. I've been doing this for probably 14 years. People ask me, why do you still walk? It's not election year. Because that's one thing that aggravated me for politicians. The most time you see them is election year. I'm not that type of person. I asked the gentleman here at the last meeting, when they was talking about, I think it's the Teachers Association, I went over and told him, I said, I'd like to meet with you. More or less, I got blowed off. I will meet with anybody. I meet people in Shawfield, Blacksburg, Christiansburg. I'll meet anybody anywhere. And if you know me, you know I will.
Supervisor Fidzikowski.
Well, Supervisor King, I have, I think, the largest district in the county, so I don't really want to walk the whole thing. So I might use some wheels.
Mine's the biggest.
I think, first of all, I'm going to start out with, I think we can accomplish what we need to accomplish this year without a tax increase. And the chairwoman of the school board said that their budget priorities haven't changed, and they are salary enhancements for our employees. That's doable without tax raise. Maintaining our employee benefits without change to employee premiums. That's doable without a tax increase. Technology equipment and Chromebook sustainability, again, that's doable this year. School bus replacement, 2 buses, doable. Capital maintenance, doable. This is how I propose it. Craig, he mentioned to us that we had some revised numbers from the school budget itself, and they moved some things around when they found out that the recommended amount was the 1.5 million, and they made it work. My proposal is that many of these things that they had to cut out will be paid for with year-end money. That's how we can pay that. So it really comes down to SROs. Now, many of you know that I spent 25 years as a state trooper in this county, and that also I was trained as an SRO. Unfortunately, never got to serve as one, but I did receive that training. The proposals that I'm going to suggest are just that, suggestions. I think that under Plan A, we could take the money that it would take for 3 SROs and have the sheriff provide one out of his budget. And the finance section, they redid all those numbers from the sheriff's office to help them out with that. And they came up with a cost of 1 SRO at $60,731. If we take that and multiply that times 3 to meet these 4 critical SROs, we come up with a total of 182,193. Now, if that is the way that we want to go, if that's what we really want to do, is to put SROs in the classroom or in the schools, then I would say that we need to pull it out of the school budget, but we would not have to pull out all of it, because along with all the other penny pinching and squeezing that our finance department did, they were able to come up with $85,000. So if you take that out of that, you're now under $100,000 that we would have to take out of the school budget. At the end of the year, I am hoping, after listening to the treasurer, that we're going to have more money from tax sales. I think all that money can be given back to the schools. So again, I think we can get to the point where we take care of the priorities that are listed and give the school back their money and have the SROs if we want them. My plan B was to also take the money out of the schools, but instead of giving it to the sheriff's office for the SROs, we put it in a contingency fund. By doing that, we can look at the issue a little bit closer, because I think everybody on this board would have to admit that this was kind of sprung on us a little bit late in the budgeting season, And we really need to consider a lot of factors. I know that it's easy to think that if I have an SRO in my school, my kid will be safe. That has not proven to be true in the rest of the country. So it's kind of a false sense of security. Is it a good idea? I have said from the beginning that I like the idea, because kids get more out of having a police officer there than just somebody who's going to protect them. They have somebody there that is going to relate to them, and I think that's real important. But again, in a contingency, we could do with that money whatever we decide after maybe coming up with a committee and looking into all the aspects of security for our schools. I know the school system has what I saw, a robust security plan, but just like with all things, it can be improved on. And I know that Supervisor Shepard mentioned one of them just a little while ago. My third, my plan C, is to shelve the idea of SROs for another year. And I say that because Prince William County is right now conducting a pilot program where they are going to use retired police officers, and they set a parameter up. So they're not getting somebody who's been retired for 10, 20 years. They set up this parameter. They're going to do their program. After a year, we can look at how successful their program was, because by using retirees, you bring the cost down even more. The fact that we have a reassessment going on and citizens are going to get their taxes, if you're a homeowner or landowner, more than likely your taxes are going to go up anyways. How much? We don't know right now. I don't think anybody has a clue as to what it's going to be. We can guess. But I would like to kind of put off tax increases until we see what we have next year. And hopefully it'll be more revenue than what we're seeing this year, which from the looks of things is pretty low. Besides this pilot program that Prince William is doing, I think there's other things that we can work with the Sheriff's Office to improve security for all the schools. And I know that my proposals are only talking about 4, because that's what the Sheriff said were what he considered the critical schools. I know other board members feel strongly that if you're going to do 4, then you need to do all 8. And again, I am thinking that is too much to bite off at one fell swoop, especially since we haven't looked into anything else. That's all I got.
Supervisor DeMoss.
Okay, just a couple of things. One, from our last meeting, we discussed elementary school safety and SROs and what SROs could do for elementary school safety, and we had a bit of a I guess a question up here about how often are elementary schools the subject of random acts of violence or shooters. And so it's surprisingly very difficult to get that type of information, even using the internet, of course, because the definitions of school shootings change based on who is presenting the information. And so I looked at elementary school shootings during my life. So I looked from 1981 to the present, and found a list of school shootings. The worst, of course, occurred at Sandy Hook Elementary School in 2012. But in my time on this earth, there have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I've got 13 elementary school shootings here with 56 dead and 147 injured. And the exception to that would be the West Nickel Mines School. I counted that as an elementary school because the victims in that school shooting were ages 6 to 13. That was a one-room schoolhouse. So it had education across all ages, and I made a copy of that chart for each of you. I'd also like to point out that there have been 306 reported school shootings in America since 2013. And again, based on who's presenting the information, it is difficult. A school shooting on some websites I found could be defined as a school shooting close to a school and not necessarily in the school. So I tried to research each of the school shootings I put on this list to make sure that they actually occurred in a school. We've had 18 school shootings so far in 2018, and we're in week 15 of 2018. So I bring all this to the forefront just to stress the importance of school safety and taking reasonable measures to make sure that we as a community are doing everything that we can to provide safety and security in the schools. Do I think SROs are the absolute solution to this? Absolutely not, I don't. But do I think SROs are a really good first step and better than what we're doing right now? Yes, I do believe that. I don't know necessarily if this board has an appetite for a tax increase, so I don't really know how we get to having SROs in the schools, but I would like to make the point that if we put 4 SROs into schools, we're putting SROs into all 4 of the county schools. That leaves elementary schools in both Christiansburg and Blacksburg without SROs. And I know the police chiefs for both Blacksburg and Christiansburg have, I think they're roving SROs, so they move from school to school, but they don't have dedicated SROs. And it's important to, I guess, look at tax income versus tax expenses. So our total real estate tax collected in 2017 was $91,785,019. Of that, $33,325,425 came from the town of Blacksburg, so over a third of it. $26,822,245 came from the town of Christiansburg, not quite a third. And then the remaining $31,637,349 came from areas outside of the 2 town limits. Now that's just looking at real estate taxes. That's not all taxes and all, you know, designated dollars that we get from our state and federal government. But it is important to note that 2/3 of the tax revenue is coming from the 2 towns, yet they wouldn't benefit from putting 4 SROs in county schools. So I think that there's an issue of fairness to consider, because the town residents are already paying for SROs, they're already paying for roving SROs for town schools and also for county schools. And so there's just a little bit of disparity there between what town residents would be paying for and what they would be getting, and I wouldn't be doing a service to my district if I didn't bring that up. To, I guess, some of the points that have been made, I think it's pretty important to just say, without any uncertainty, I absolutely would not support any initiative from this board that would take money out of the public schools budget. And I'm very divided on that issue, because I do want SROs, but I don't want SROs at the expense of teacher salaries, step increases, capital maintenance, buses, things that should be annual expenses that are built into the budget. And so, again, I absolutely would not support any plan that would take even $100,000 from the public schools budget request. If we don't move forward with a tax increase, we're already funding them at a lower rate than what they've requested, so I don't think we should be taking any more from that. And Steve, I liked your idea about possibly putting funds aside in a contingency fund for further study of the issue of SROs. I think that has some room for compromise. I don't know if, I guess it would be an item to discuss whether we would do that or not I would be supportive of doing that with carryover funding instead of in the fiscal year budget, knowing that we have a real estate reassessment coming up, and we do expect growth revenue based on that. So doing a one-time provision from carryover funds instead of out of the budget would, I think, be a reasonable thing to do. And I guess that's really all I have for right now.
Supervisor Biggs.
Well, I think Supervisor DeMott's did a great job of sort of summarizing the different discussions that I've had with different board members. I've had a chance to talk to Sarah and to Steve and to Todd and to April, but not necessarily, I didn't talk to Daryl or Chris yet. First of all, I'm completely against taking any money out of the school board budget. The school board did an excellent job this year presenting their budget. And not only did they present it in even a more transparent way than even the year before, but they have updated us constantly about monies regarding, you know, any extra monies and the fact that they're getting money from the state for the 50 more students that are now enrolled. So I'm completely against doing anything. They asked us, they read the letter here, they want to keep their money. Now, it was sort of thrust on all of us about the situation because of Parkland. Okay, so that's how it all happened. When the sheriff came here, Craig had already made his budget, and when I sat there that night and I said, so there's no money in this budget for SROs because it hadn't been visited. We talked about it a long time ago. Middle and high school have SROs, but elementary has not. Well, if you don't have money in a budget for something and you feel there's a need for it, that doesn't mean to me that you take money away from the school board budget where the needs are just barely being met. So that's why I proposed to discuss the 1.5 cents. Now, at that time, I thought that the cost of 8 SROs was $650,000, but I've since found out that it's about $485,000, Steve, a little bit more than that. Now, I feel very passionate about this because as an elementary teacher, I've been locked in the closet with kids. I know what that's like. And if you're going to do it for one, you do it for all. You do not discriminate and put an SRO in one school and not another. And April and I have talked about this, and Sarah and I have, and I've mentioned it to Todd and Steve. The two towns pay taxes too. Why are their kids less important than putting SROs in the county schools? Well, the argument has been stated, well, it takes longer to get to Bellevue. Well, yeah, it does, but try getting from Kips to Harding Avenue through Price's Fork someday. That takes time too. So my idea would be, if there cannot be a compromise, which I would really like to see this board, we had citizens that came here. We have emails that have been sent. What did they say? They said they supported the school board budget and SROs. There were a few people that came that were against a tax increase, but the majority that came and showed up were invested in the discussion, engaged, and we need to think about those. As Ms. DeMott's mentioned, the number of people that live within the towns. We need to think about, when we're talking about the whole county, we need to be talking about representing the whole county. And I'm passionate about children. You just cannot put one group of children above another, in my opinion. I've always been that way. I've supported everything in this county for schools. It didn't matter where it was. So what I would be looking for is, in fairness, that if we're going to do SORs, we do them everywhere. If we're not going to do them, okay, we don't do them. We don't take the money from the schools. Now, if we're not going to do them, I would say that this board has a responsibility to the people of this county and to the students of this county and to the Montgomery County Public School staff to look at what should we be doing to enhance security. I'm sorry, but we live in a time where that's a necessary, it's a necessary thing. It's not something, oh yeah, we can have SRO, you know. No, it's necessary. It's another layer of law enforcement in the schools, and I know from being a teacher, when the DARE officers came in, I know how those kids responded to them. I know that they didn't just work with 5th grade, they worked with all the kids. The kids love them. It develops a respect for law enforcement. And it's been stated by even people in our audience, it's role model. So I personally would like to see a compromise with the board. What would be wrong with trying to have a half-cent increase or a 1 penny increase to support 8 SRO officers in the elementary schools? If we're not ready to implement them in the schools, Steve's idea of reserve fund, you could put the money there until it's all worked out. If 8 of them were to cost $485,845 and a half a penny raise is $387,500, that leaves $98,345 to be funded to put all 8 in place. Now, I'm thinking in my mind, can we not find that?
We found the 85.
Can we not? Find 85, subtract that from 98. Come on. If we really want to do this, we can do it. We can do it. And we can have a compromise. If we don't want to have a compromise, then I can't support taking money out of the schools to do it, no matter how passionately I feel about SROs. I will keep bringing it up. It's not going to go away. I have a voice and I'll use it. So that's the way I feel, and I'm looking to board members, you know, if you want to have a compromise, we can do it. Doesn't have to even be a full penny. It can be a half a penny to invest in elementary students in this county. And I'll shut my mouth.
Did I miss anybody? I've missed people. A few things. I want to start off with the issue in regards to the towns. Supervisor DeMonts was present with myself when I talked with Chief Sisson. Chief Sisson, the chief of Christiansburg, said he would love to have an extra 2 officers. But he said, we're good. He said, I don't have the same issues that Hank has. I mean, he was very blunt and he was very honest with me. He was very honest with the Supervisor DeMonts. And I said, can I quote you on that? And he said, yes. They have things in place that they don't want everybody to know. They do have a roving SRO. And the towns are responsible for law enforcement inside the towns. Yes, a deputy has the right to make arrests without the county, but where do they patrol? They patrol outside in the county. Where do the police officers inside the towns? That's where they patrol. And so that's why we've seen the town of Blacksburg pay for their SRO officers and the town of Christiansburg pay for their SRO officers. They believe, those towns thought it was important to have a roving SRO, and that's what they do, but they also do some other things. And I frankly don't want to say those other things out in public. But if you want to meet with the chief, I think he'll tell you and give you a pretty good idea. It's my understanding that's also in place in the town of Blacksburg, and that conversations the sheriff had with Chief Wilson were very similar to the conversations with Chief Sisson. So that aspect in my mind, I'm looking at SROs in those remote areas. Ms. Biggs is right. There was several years ago that there was an opportunity for a grant when I was on the board to pay for some SROs in roughly the 4 schools that we're talking about now. There was a pass. We tried to talk with the towns to see if they were going to pick up. There were some questions about fairness and those issues, and we passed on that grant. So that's a legitimate issue. I still, and I know that there's this emotional response. We've got to do something to protect every single child. Well, I noticed one of the schools that's listed as a private school. We're not saying we're going to send SROs to every private school. Don't we care about those kids? And so what you have to do is, there comes with a price with everything. And Supervisor Fichikowski mentioned that. And what are the risks and the rewards for those things? We look at Parkland. There was a terrible event, and unfortunately that officer didn't do anything that he was trained to do. I looked at elementary schools, and I appreciate this information in regards to, because I was aware of the Sandy Hook. I had forgotten about the one in Cleveland at Stockton, California. But I guess, and maybe you're right, I was thinking mass shootings, and the ones that came up were Sandy Hook at an elementary school, as well as the one in the Amish community, and I looked at that as a private school. So I wanted to talk about his plan A a little bit and plan B. We found out we're going to get $85,000, and I look at Mark, he's holding his head, but he believes honestly that we're going to have $85,000 in revenue. We're saying we're going to spend every drop of that. Yes, it's going to be for SROs, but that's all going to the schools. And other jurisdictions, school boards fund their SROs. We're saying, hey, look, we'll put that 85 in. We're basically looking to the school board. Hey, look, if this is an important issue, you've had a lot of people come forward. Are you willing to come up with 97 out of your budget? Figure out a way. And then, as I understand, plan A is we're going to make it up to you because on line 42 of your budget, there's $204,400 for capital maintenance. If that came out, and I'm roughly doing some math, and we're talking about those 3 officers, the county is given $85,000. We're saying that we're going to meet those capital needs if we have those funds left over at the end of the year. We did exactly what we promised to do last September, and I expect we would do the same. But plan A, and guess what? Hank's got skin in the game too, because he's got to find a deputy to reassign. Now, one thing about Steve's plan, as I understand those numbers, those don't include new cars. And so there's some equipment that the sheriff is going to have to utilize older cars that got 100,000 miles or more on them. And one of the things, if you remember, we recently passed a resolution, and we as a board would have to agree to allow him to use those cars because technically he's supposed to surplus them. But if you also think about those cars, SROs are not doing a lot of patrolling. They're there, and it would address those 4 issues. If we went with plan A, then the towns could see, maybe it is, they're talking with their police chiefs. They're the primary, and they could make that decision about their towns. If they said, look, we're good. We've got security measures in place. We feel comfortable that we're protecting our kids. Then that's fine. But if each town council decided, hey, look, we want to have SROs in the schools, that's a decision that those elected bodies may be able to make. So plan A, the $85,000, 100% of that is being spent on schools. And I know people are talking about pulling money out of schools. We're not talking about funding the ACE program. We're not talking about funding money for parks. We're talking about putting money into schools for school resource officers. We're not talking about raises for Board of Supervisors with that money. So that money is being, in my mind, spent on schools. I also like plan B. Put it in a contingency fund. Have a meeting. Talk about what's the best way to do it and look at those funds. If the school board and we working together decide that's not the right answer, those 4 are not the right answer, hey, look, here's your money back. Okay? We've got our 85 back. They've got theirs, but it's a contingency and it allows us to work through things, and Supervisor DeMont said that. But when I look at that as an idea, as far as shelving the idea, until this plan came forward, I was excited that we were going to be probably giving the school board more money than they asked for in the long run. I like that idea. I like the fact that we fund schools better than anybody else. I like the fact that teachers are getting a 1.5% raise. I like the fact that 53% of them will be put on the right step. Those are all good, positive things that we should all be tremendously proud of. And we've all done that. That's the Board of Supervisors working together. So I don't know about shelving the idea and just going forward with that funds. I like A and B. And then I had just an epiphany while we were talking about this, and I haven't discussed it with any board member. $85,000. The towns are doing roaming officers in their elementary schools. The cost of an SRO is rough now. What was it, 60-some thousand?
Yeah. 6731.
Maybe we talk with Hank, because he is a constitutional officer and he has to agree to this. That maybe we utilize that $85,000 and we put an SRO and we roam them through the R4 schools like the towns are. Now again, I haven't ran that by anybody, and I was just, when we were talking about that, that's just an idea. But those are some things that I think maybe the Plan D out there would be a possibility. And so I would like to try to go back around one more time. I know the hour is late. I know it's a 9:45, but I'd like to spend a little bit more time. And I'm going to start with Supervisor Shepherd. If you have any other remarks or anything else that you would like to say.
I had another idea. And I'm by no means a financial person. I'll use the word loosely, bean counter. I just in the back of my mind, I wonder if there would be enough deputies, since he has 115, that would like to work overtime and do it as an overtime project instead of having to hire and have benefits. And I think it might be a lot cheaper.
Plan E?
Plan E?
What's that?
Oh, you had D.
I had D.
I just looked at staff to make sure we had A, B, C, D, and E. Okay.
All right, Darryl, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Okay. Supervisor King?
Well, if none of this works out, school's about over. And we're going to have leftover, well, we hopefully have leftover money. So we can put some of that aside and work it out before school starts again.
So you're saying the contingency Plan B?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't mean to cut you off either.
Well, you did.
No, I'm done. Supervisor Fidzikowski?
Yeah, I wanted just to bring up two more things. I've been hearing from a lot of folks that basically say, why is it every time taxes go up, it's the people that own houses, it's the people that have land. They're wondering why it's always put on their backs. And I mean, they have a good point. Unfortunately, we just can't tax anything we want to. We're limited in what we can raise taxes with. But I think it's a valid point, and that's one thing that I'm considering, especially in light of the fact that we're going through a reassessment and it's going to be going up. The other thing is and I want to make note of this, that the schools in their budget, they never asked for SROs. This was, the kind of the last thought that the sheriff had in light of the Parkland shootings. And yes, they are for it, but this wasn't their idea. So my way of thinking is they must think that their security that they have in place now is adequate. I think it could go further, and I would love to be part of that conversation. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Supervisor Gamons.
A couple of things. Steve, you brought up an interesting question that I'd actually like to address on why do tax increases just hit people that own land? And this was not part of your question, but we've had a couple of emails that have referenced specifically renters not having to pay tax increases. So I want to put on my property manager hat. I manage 2 apartment communities in Blacksburg in addition to this job. At our last reassessment, multifamily housing, especially in Blacksburg, no surprise, went up a lot in value. My rent went up a lot to reflect the increase in tax bills. And so I think just the validity of the point that, yes, renters are not paying a real estate tax bill to Montgomery County, but they certainly are paying real estate taxes in Montgomery County because, I don't own the properties, but you can rest assured that my boss was not willing to absorb that increase in taxes without passing it along. Keeping my property manager hat on, we've discussed the potential of taking capital maintenance out of the budget as a possible avenue for paying for SROs. Capital maintenance and having the money necessary for capital maintenance is absolutely vital to facility upkeep and operations. I don't believe that capital maintenance expenses should be taken out of the budget because that is one of the most important recurring expenses that the schools have. If they don't have a budget to take care of their facilities, the facilities will deteriorate and get to the point where we're doing capital repairs, which are always more expensive than maintenance. I like Mary's idea of considering a half a penny increase. Half a penny increase would result in an increased tax bill of $5 per $100,000 evaluation. So for a $300,000 house, that would be an additional $15 a year that a homeowner would pay in taxes, just a little bit over $1 a month. And I think that that's an extremely worthwhile investment in bringing one additional layer of safety to our schools. I look around, I think I am the only one up here that has children that go to schools still, that, well, still are in public K through 12 education. And so this is very personal for me. As one of our commenters said during public address, classrooms are nothing like they were when I was in school, and I'm in classrooms all the time because I'm there visiting my children's teachers. And then going back to Plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever. Plan B, I've heard support for that from Chris and Todd, in addition to it being one of Steve's proposals. I would like to discuss whether Plan B could be something that could be supported with carryover funds instead of out of the regular budget. And Todd, you made a point that school's not in session that much longer. And so it's something that we could possibly use carryover funds, set it aside to look more in depth at this issue. Why are you looking at me like that?
Well, I'm looking at him. He's the answer man.
Well, I just, oh, okay. I was going to say, I don't like using carryover money to hire people with.
Right, and I understand that. I think
so, that would be the
that's
concern.
why you were looking at me like that.
Well, I was actually looking at him because he was looking at me.
I thought somebody was looking at me.
And that's a reasonable concern, and I think what I said the first time around was knowing that we have a real estate tax assessment coming where we know we're going to generate growth revenue through that, we're going to grow the base, that it's something that could at least be considered.
Supervisor Biggs.
Well, I don't know if we ever got to Plan F, but Plan F would be leave the school board budget alone, take a half a penny, okay, for the 8, put in the $85,000, and that would leave you with only $13,345 to find to fund 8 of them. And so that's Plan F, and you know, since everybody else has to play it, I'm going to throw that out, and I'm District F, that's Plan F.
And Supervisor Bone?
That's your plan.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to rely on the school board to help me verify my numbers, but I have worked with Katie tirelessly to make sure my numbers are correct. So, bottom line, school budget was $2.3 million. We provided $1.5 million. They have the rest of the money coming from the state and the federal government. Nod, please, if that's correct. Great. So, really, what that doesn't include is 8 buses and the technology infrastructure that came out. So the 8 buses, meaning there are no buses in the $1.5 million. 8 buses at $93,850 per bus is $750,800. The technology infrastructure, of which we heard from a teacher at the last meeting, Miss Osborne, that the Wi-Fi was cutting out. Well, that's what technology infrastructure is about. So thank you for a perfect example. And that's $250,000 that they took out of their budget so that they could make everything work for the $1.5 million. Okay, so that four SRO officers, how much does that cost?
$485.
Wait. 4 is half of that.
4 is
$82,000.
No, it's not.
60,000 times.
We want to go 61,000.
Well, you're asking for the full cost, right?
So it's $244,000. Is that correct?
Rounded.
Yes.
Yeah.
With used cars.
Okay.
And what clarify?
The cars aren't in that number at all.
Yes.
That's
And you're saying that Sheriff Parton hasn't confirmed that using used older cars is acceptable. Is there any reason why he wouldn't allow that if we allowed it?
I don't want to speak for Sheriff Barton.
Well, he said in here, when he had last time in here, that SOR cars had over 100,000 miles on them.
He did. I think, though, when he put his 81,000, he had some new vehicles, and I'm looking to our staff that went over, and I may be wrong, that he had some new vehicles in that 80, remember that number, 81,000?
There was a total, and that included a couple of vehicles and the officers. That's why you just couldn't simply divide it by 8, because it didn't quite.
Right, because there were some new vehicles in the $81,000 number that he came up with.
Okay, so bear with me as I do some calculations here. Okay. 8 buses at $750, 800. Technology infrastructure for $250. 8 SRO officers. I don't know why we think we don't need SRO officers. It's part of the plan, right? So 8 is 488. That adds up to $1,488,800. I understand that the state budget for the schools will probably be at least $16,000, okay? Carry forward funds for the schools, we said, was $640,000.
You're talking about from our money or from what? Now, they have a carryover
What we
right.
said-
Because we have to vote to return that money to them.
Right. We said in order to complete their budget, we were going to give them carry forward money in the approximate value of $640,000.
Well, you can't say that because we got to vote on it.
Yes.
I agree with that, but we're talking about the options, and I'm now on H, okay? So, or maybe G. Am I on G?
You're on G.
Okay.
Hey, G's mine.
Okay, 640, is that what you said, Craig?
Yes, ma'am. Roughly 640. It was exactly.
Okay. So, and we believe that the real estate tax sale proceeds will eventually provide about $250,000. Now, the timing of this is more in the second half of this year, but it would be kind of the same timing as the carry forward money. Okay, so the $16,000 from the schools, the $640 from the carry forward, the $250,000 ends up being $906,000. And we needed 1.488. So we needed another $500,000, which is equivalent to 3/4 of a cent. No one's been talking about the 8 buses. Am I the only person? I mean, you guys do need 8 buses this year, and it's not in your budget. Is that correct? Okay. And no one's talking about the technology infrastructure. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay.
What was in this other money?
I'm sorry, say that again.
That's in the 640, as I understand it.
Right.
It will be coming back.
It will be part of the 640.
Right.
Okay.
I thought the request was for 2 buses.
But it's not.
2 buses.
Two
right?
buses.
The 640 would
Yeah, but they have 0 buses in their.
Are you saying that we shouldn't give them their rollover money? Because last year, that's what they
Yes,
did.
we need to give them the rollover money.
But that's what they used to buy their buses last year, was their rollover money, if I remember
And
right.
fuel
Now,
savings.
yeah, it's
Fuel savings.
Could somebody come
You
up
only
here
bought
and
2 buses the entire year?
I'm glad Dr. Meyer is feeling better.
Me too. So, Dr. Meyer, how many buses did y'all buy last year?
8.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
Okay.
and our budget request to you, we requested 2.
Okay.
But we need 8 by the end of the summer. that we hope to get through to either through end of year savings and fuel savings, your carryover, our carryover, any of those minutes.
So you're saying that the 640,000 was going to take care of a total of, you would at the end of the summer have 8 buses and your technology infrastructure satisfied. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know. It's dependent on
fuel savings.
Well, fuel savings, the carryover that of the county carryover, and then school carryover, and then yeah, all those types of things.
But that's what you were expecting to meet your needs. Is that correct? The county part would carry over 640,000 in combination with everything that you're going to do was going to meet your needs for the total of 8 buses plus the technology infrastructure. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that was meeting your whole budget request.
That's correct.
Okay. So, all we're looking for is to pay for the SROs. And so we have, I don't have any other questions for you, Dr. Meyer. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Sure.
Don't go far.
Right. So we're looking for 244 for 4 SROs or 488 for 8. And we're going to have, we have 85,000 plus the 250 in carryover. But we can't use that carryover stuff, carry forward real estate tax. We cannot use the real estate tax sales proceeds of 250,000 for salaries for SROs. Is that correct, Craig?
One time.
You could, but I'm sorry, you asked Craig.
No, well, you could, but I would not.
Is there anything in our budget that can be pulled out to use carry forward funds to pay for? I know that our budget, our part of the budget was $400,000. Is there anything in that $400,000 that is...
Trying to remember what capital items, you remember right off what capital items we have in there? It's very little, right?
Yeah.
There's very little.
Do you mean the Board of Supervisors part of the budget is 400?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, and there are none.
None.
None in the Board of Supervisors.
All right. So anything we do for SROs is all new money. Has to be, well, we have the 85,000. That's all we've got. $85,000 out of 244 is one. I can't do the math.
159.
Yeah, 140. About 140. So we need 140. And Craig doesn't like us to do anything other than half-cent increments for taxes.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how we can use carry forward or contingency money to pay for the potential use of SRO officers. But it sounds like we can do that.
We can do it. It's ill-advised. Yeah. So I proposed it knowing that it's kind of ill-advised because you'd be using one-time money to pay for what are permanent positions. And so I brought it up as a point of discussion, knowing that we have the reassessment coming and we'll grow the base through reassessment. So yes, it's one-time money, but we know we have future money coming, and that's not the wisest accounting strategy. I'm looking at ways that we can compromise and ways that we can respond to the requests of, our citizens to do something without cutting anything from the school's budget.
Right. I would not want anything to come out of the school budget. Another question that I have is, our SRO officers are being paid for by the county. Is that correct at this point in time?
In the county schools.
In the county schools. So why would we put them in the school budget? What logic is that? Where's that coming from? Why would we have some money over here for SRO officers for the middle and high schools and some money over here that the schools are paying for SRO officers?
For me, I think it's a matter of transparency, and I think that we need to be able to show it. Now, I don't care if we give the money to the schools and come back, but I think that that's money that this county is investing in our schools, and we're providing SROs. And so for me, it's transparency. Now, I don't care if we put a line and how we do it, and I know it could be in accounting, and I know that there are accountants in the room and say, that's no problem, we can just transfer it back and forth. But to me, that is another investment, and how we're investing in schools, and other localities do it that way. So, and that's why I don't see that we're taking money from schools. We're spending money in schools.
But will you take the SRO officers that are not in the school budget, the 8, and put them in the school budget? Is that your intent?
I would not support 8.
No, I'm saying for the middles and high schools, they're not in the school budget right now.
But I think in the future budgets, not this one, but I will be asking staff in the next year's budget to pull those, and not just at least to show that line, to be able to show that that's how much more money that we're investing in kids, because I think people need to know that we're making that kind of investment, because not, some have SROs in high schools, some don't have them in middle schools, and a lot don't have them in elementary schools. I think the majority now have them in high schools, from what I've been able to find out. But in my mind, that's transparency. That shows how we're spending our money, and that those officers, yes, they're sworn officers, but they're in the schools.
So, Dr. Meyer, it's my interpretation that if it's in the school budget, then the schools are in charge of the SRO officers. Is that fair, or is that not?
I don't believe.
I'm not sure how
I think that they respond to the chiefs. I think they work very closely with the school board.
Yes, they work with us, but they're paid by the police departments and the sheriff's department, not by us, so it's in their budget.
Right.
That's the way it should be.
But if it were to change,
Sarah, I'm not talking about changing it this year. I'm talking about maybe in next year's budget that would be. So if that's what you're concerned, I'm just saying as far as B, and what I'm trying to say is a contingency fund that we're saying we got $85,000 worth of new money. Out of the 1.9, we're saying trying to give them 1.5 of that new money. That's 70-some%. We got another 85,000. I have no clue what that adds that percent up. But we're saying we'll put another 85 into the school budget. Would be asking, reaching out to the school board. If this SRO is a vital issue, maybe their priorities are going to change. If they knew, maybe we might get a different letter that says, hey, that means the county's willing to put 85 up. The schools might have to find out how they can come up with 97. And Hank Parton's got to figure out how he can come up with 1 and drive around in 4 old cars. And so that's what I'm looking at B being. But a conversation where we're setting those funds aside and having that conversation. So I don't want to distract everybody on what I might do next year. I'd rather focus on this year. And so that's what I'm saying with that conversation.
This is what I'm confused with, is if you're talking about the 4 officers this year. 3 officers this year.
And because then 1 from Hank.
Right. So if it's being paid out of the school board budget.
I'm not saying school board budget. I'm saying that let's say that we reach out. Dr. Meyer sends us another.
No, contingency plan B.
You're right.
I get it.
And Dr. Meyer and the school board and Connie and Goonan say, this is a great idea. Okay? We're willing to compromise and if y'all are willing to throw us another 85,000 into resource officers, we'll figure out to come up with 97. We'll get 3. Hank puts in 1. That may work, but it may not. That's why it's set over in contingencies. And we would work through this in the next few months to see if we could resolve it.
I would recommend that we use 97,000 of the real estate tax proceeds that we expect to get as adding to the contingency fund, as opposed to asking the schools to go find $97,000.
Yeah.
But what we're also saying is that if you reduce let's say their capital maintenance budget is reduced by $97,000, okay? We're saying at the end of the year, we're going to make up for that in June or July.
Okay.
I'm sorry, August or September. I apologize. August, September, we're going to still get you that 204 minus 97,000. But that 204,400 is reoccurring money, okay? It's in the capital maintenance. So that would allow us to hire new people. And I'm not asking you to commit. Don't want you to try. I would not do that to you because he's got a board. He's got to respond to 7 people.
I see. What you're saying is that they somehow come up with $97,000 now, or between now and when we have carry forward money or tax sale proceeds that we can make them whole again.
Well, not our tax sale proceeds or the one-time budget fund, but we get their 204 back into their budget for capital maintenance. And that's what I'm saying as a contingency. If they say, look, we want that capital maintenance, we don't want resource officers, that's a decision they're making, okay? At least, then we may decide to spend the $85,000 for a roaming resource officer, or we may not decide to do any of those things. But if you set it aside, then you can make a decision later. And we got hit with this last minute. The sheriff's budget, I think, was due in January, and we got hit with it in a few days. They got hit with it the same way. And so it gives a chance to have a conversation if it's a contingency fee. I'm not going to vote for a tax increase when I can see that we've got ways to be able to do it. And so I know that that's something that you want to advocate Plan G for. But the way I see Plan B is a contingency and a conversation. Plan A is let's do it, and Plan C is roaming, and Plan D, shelf. D is roaming, E is overtime, F is half a penny, and G is whatever you're getting ready to suggest.
Can I say one thing?
Yes,
too?
please.
At something else that we are looking at. We're looking at other things in terms of school safety, not just additional SRO officers. I think it's a bigger issue than that. And at the end of the day, we may be coming back to you possibly for one-time money. We're looking at actual door locks that are lock systems. And our initial estimates on those security measures for our school, right now the initial estimate's about $100,000 to secure every classroom with an emergency door lock. And so that's a one-time expense that we're looking into, and we're looking at a couple of models that we're going to test out and that kind of thing. And so basically it's a way to barricade the door quickly from inside. And so that's something else. And I think it goes beyond SROs. This came upon us quickly because of what happened in Florida. But it did make us, self-reflect. And but Ms. Karan, I think she read the letter that the school board approved. Our priorities are still the priorities that we gave you from the get-go. They have not changed. But of course, the recent events obviously make us rethink some things. And one thing we're thinking about are the security of our classrooms and how they're actually barricaded in those rooms, and we're looking at other ways as well. We do have a school safety committee that meets with all the different law enforcement officers and a group several times a year, and they're real good. I've never worked with law enforcement as good as here in Montgomery County. They're pretty amazing. And Mr. Fidzikowski, I'd welcome you to sit in with us.
I was going to send you an email on that tomorrow.
And so I would love for you to be a part of that group and having these conversations. And so, but I think there are a lot of things we can do. But the one thing we may be asking for too is one-time money for that locking system to barricade the kids in the classrooms.
All right.
Okay.
And
I just want to make sure, thank you, Dr. Meyer. I understand one of the proposals is to take the 204 from the schools.
I think everybody said the full 204. I think a portion of that.
A portion of
we have to recommend, they get to decide. We were saying, hey, look, here's a place that you might be able to pull it. That's their decision, not ours.
They may even want to take some of the money from the Wi-Fi, the $50,000 for that. I mean, I don't know how much you all have spent in years past on that, but I think it's closer to like 4,000, isn't it?
I think it was a grant.
Or 1,000.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they may want to kind of split it up a little bit. But.
I'm just gonna, I'd prefer to leave the school budget the way that it is and recommend a half-cent increase. I believe that's
Plan
what,
G. Okay. All right.
And that's for 8. Is that for 8, Mary?
That's for Plan F.
Oh, excuse me. Half a penny is Plan F. I thought you said a cent. I'm
No,
sorry.
a half a penny.
All right, so you're
I'm
supporting
doing F.
Okay. All right.
Only because I don't want to take money from this. I don't want them to have to rework their budget proposal.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience.
No problem. All right, at this point in time, we need to give staff some direction. And I know that we've got like a lot of different options out
I'd
there.
like to throw one more thing out there.
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Dr. Myers brought up door locks and such. Why don't we put this SOR on layaway? School's getting ready to be out. Let them get coordinated, see what they need. We're sitting up here, we're going to push something through, and they're going to need something different.
So,
I mean, let them get coordinated what they need.
all right, in my hearing, so I'm trying to look to see, and there may be more than one plan that's got, but I'm trying to narrow it so staff can have us something ready next week because we're going to be voting on this next week. And so I'm looking to try to get us someplace. And I'll start off with the Plan F as far as it coming up with figures. And remember, this is not a vote. This is not binding. You can vote somewhere differently, but on Monday night. And you can propose, I want to make it clear, somebody can still propose something different. But that seems to be can I get how many folks would vote for raising taxes by half a penny and the plan that's suggested in F? Just a thumbs up. All right, so there's 3. I'm going to ask staff to prepare some numbers for that. All right, the other plan that seems to be popular is a Plan B that Steve put forward as far as numbers and a contingency. And that means that we would set aside roughly $97,000 less, as I hear that, and then match that with the 85, put it in a contingency fund, and then meet with the schools and try to come up with an answer. How many, without any tax increase? And I guess I'm looking for how many people are in favor of that?
I'm just not, right now, I'm just not sure if I would prefer that over putting it off for a year and watching some of these other studies and doing like Todd said, that, you know, let's let the school figure out what they're going to need and go from there.
I mean, you're going to sit here and hire all these people, and they're going to need something different.
Okay.
Well, the school board was very specific in their most recent letter to us that they don't want anything taken out of their budget to pay for SROs.
And if we didn't put SROs in, nothing would come out.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so, and I'm looking around. It looks like that it is. Do y'all want? And let me ask you.
I would recommend that we. It's not waiting a whole year. It's maybe using the tax sales proceeds for potential.
I'm not going to support using one-time tax sale money to hire people. I'm never going to vote for that one-time money. I'm just not. Now, for capital stuff or for school buses, those things I'm gonna support.
Or security issues.
Or getting those door
security
locks,
equipment.
those type things.
Sure.
I can. But as far as hiring people, then I got to look at those people and say, you're fired. You don't have a job now. Because the following year we don't have those funds. And I don't want to go there. And that's where I'm at.
I think that's reasonable.
So can I ask this of staff, and please give us, how hard would it be to come up with a contingency fee fund if we wanted to bring that? And then the shelving idea, we don't need any additional numbers because we already have those.
That's where you are right now.
Right now. So
that's what I'm hearing is that, you know, where we are right now, or option F, which was what was discussed, that 3 indicated that they would be interested in considering. Did you guys hear enough to be able to put that together?
Is there only one option?
No, we're getting ready to come up. I'm getting ready to come up. I'm trying to, the C is the shelving the idea.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's just shelving it for a year.
0.
And I don't hear.
Can I have a question about C? Like, it's putting it aside for now, but couldn't you still be having like some kind of communication or safety committee or coordinating with them?
I think Steve said he would start. And then we have liaison meetings. We have the Wednesday meetings. I would hope that we would continue. I know Dr. Meyer meets with the chiefs. I know he meets with the sheriff. So I know that those are already ongoing in regards to that.
So basically what we're saying is, basically what it's all boiling down to is this. Like either we do nothing and leave the school board budget money intact, and we go ahead and have some kind of interplay or conversation with them about security, or we do a half a penny. That's really what it's going to come down to, right?
And then the school board could also, if they decide, let's say 4 members have heard these meetings, that $97,000 we can have those SROs, they may decide that that's something that they want, and we've got that $85,000. Maybe they won't, and they may say, nope, it's a terrible idea. And I know Ms. Froggett's shaking her head back there, but she is only 1 vote, just like I'm only 1 vote. And that's got to be a decision that they've got to make.
Well, I think Daryl's position too on the overtime that's worth looking into as to what that would cost if the sheriff would have the personnel to do that.
But I'm just worried about staff being able to have us.
Yeah, it's a significant amount of overtime.
Honestly,
we just keep coming up with ideas. That's all. We just keep finding
the overtime
work.
issue would fall into the continued discussion and evaluating options. I mean, we could come back if that is an option later that the board decided to do, and look at amending the budget by using some of the county's contingency money if that's something the board decided to do.
I was just thinking there's a lot of young deputies that have families that don't make enough money, just like teachers don't.
Right.
And that would give them an option to make more money and save the county money on overhead for benefits.
Right.
I did have one question. I'm getting a little bit confused. What's the difference between option A and C?
All right, I guess A is we just do it. We're doing it. We're saying, that's why I took option A was we're doing 3, and we're just saying this done. We're going to vote on it, and that doesn't seem to be anybody's preference.
Yeah.
I still like the contingency fund and have a dialogue, but I think I may be in a minority on that one. C, shelve the idea, and then that allows the school board to come back, and if they believe SROs are important, they have the right to come back and say, hey, look, $97,000, we're interested, we can do it, we'll do the 3, Hank will come up with the 4th. So the shelving the idea, and then of course the half penny tax increase.
I guess speaking from my point of view, I've already indicated that I would be in favor of Plan F, which is a half a penny tax increase, would give us 8 SROs, and leaving the school budget alone. I can read the tea leaves and know that not only is that not going to work, there wouldn't be a majority vote for that, I don't think. I would be more in favor of looking at Plan C, and I don't want to use the phrase shelve the idea, because I think there are actions we can take between now and re-examining the financial implications of this idea. One would be Steve's already volunteered to assist with the school safety committee and to pay for it himself. No. But Steve has already expressed an interest in getting involved with the school safety committee, and Dr. Meyer has expressed his willingness to have Steve do that. And so I think that there are real concrete steps that can be taken between now and next budget season especially, but to address some of those needs with one-time funds like you proposed in the door locks, and then look at what could be recurring expenses after we do the reassessment and know what our growth revenue is for next year.
I have a question. The 85,000 is recurring money or not recurring money? Recurring money.
We've got a sheet that we can give you guys. It was $70,000 additional sales tax, $2,000 additional consumer utility tax, and $13,000 additional food and beverage tax. That's based on some revisions on current year numbers. Is that right, Mark?
Thanks, guys.
And so, you know,
Plan D was one rover for the county using this 85,000. And that might also be something, and
then keep working on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's something to consider as well. I think
Thank you, sir.
Several of us have said that we really don't want to take anything out of the school's budget. And so I think there's some compromise, there's some room for some compromise that maybe not everybody it's not their first choice solution, but they at least can say, you know what, I gave a little, and we got somewhere. We're making progress at least.
All right, can I ask staff, we need to narrow down direction, or does this give you guys enough to be prepared when we vote?
Well, I'll state what I've heard, and then the board can tell me if I'm missing. What I've heard is one option is stay the course. No changes to what's been recommended. It's just stay the course.
And what letter are you going to name that?
That's C.
Is that C?
That's C.
I didn't write them down.
Stay the course.
Stay the course.
Stay the course.
No SROs.
No SROs. That's correct.
It's investigate. Spend time investigating.
I'm referring to it from a fiscal standpoint.
Yeah. All right.
Stay the course. The other option that I heard was a half-cent increase.
That's F, right?
Which was option F. And I'm seeing heads go like this, so I'm assuming you heard what I heard.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and those are the two, but which in essence is one, because we already have the other one, and we can be prepared with that. Matter of fact, we'll put that together and email it out to everybody tomorrow so you can look at it.
When we vote on the budget on Monday, would it be appropriate to put the 85,000 in special contingencies since we don't, or just put it in contingencies? Is that where that would go?
It could be like school safety contingency, or
I just contingency. General.
We will reflect it as $85,000 of additional revenue, but we'll reflect it on the expenditure side in contingencies.
Okay.
Did you guys hear what I said? The $85,000 in additional revenue we want to show as contingencies and not appropriated as a specific line expenditure. That's what I said.
All right.
That's what we were trying to figure out.
Well, we're all on the same page.
Yeah, okay. Sounds like we're on the same page.
Now, hang on a minute.
Okay.
Do we have a cutoff for the budget? If I come to you, I want something in the budget. Do you have a date you cut that off?
That was January, but
we're still to express strongly. If somebody comes after that date, say no.
Well,
they know when the deadline is. That's a date.
And as a general rule, yes, sir, that's what we always do. This SRO issue was, in light of national situation and whatnot, it was way too political for me to just say, nope, you can't talk about that.
You could say this is the date.
Oh, I can.
I mean, look at the staff here. It's almost 11 o'clock. How much time have they spent on this budget? And now we're asking them to do more. That's wrong, and I apologize.
All right. Do I have a motion to come out of work session?
We got it.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion, Madam Clerk? Hearing no discussion about coming out of work session, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
And second.
We surprised her.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to.
Even the screens went to sleep.
Yeah.
Mr. Shepard?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett? Aye. Chair Tuck?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Next item on the business is Proclamation Public Safety Telecommunications Week. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? I'm moving fast, I know.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepard?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
7 ayes.
County Attorney Report.
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
County Administrator Report.
In the interest of time, no report this evening.
Sorry, Board of Supervisors. I got slowed down. I was like,
Well, you're
who's
always
running
used to
this
me
meeting?
saying something. I'm sorry.
Yes, I was kind of shocked. Supervisor King.
Come back to me.
Okay, Supervisor Fidzikowski.
No report.
Supervisor Biggs.
Just a couple things. So when we had our discussion about changing county government, we don't have to officially vote on that. The consensus is we're not doing it. Is that correct? In case anyone asks us. Okay. The other thing is gosh, what day was it? Friday? When did we meet with the pipeline people?
Friday.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so Steve got to meet with them, and then Sarah and I got to meet with them since we couldn't have 3 people there at the same time. One of the things that came out of it was that, as you all know, the pipeline is not going to have an odorant in that. What does that mean? It means it will have no smell. The reason being that when the gas goes through the pipeline and ends up where it's going to be shipped out, if you had an odorant in it and you were changing it to a liquid, it's a costly process, and of course the pipeline people don't want to pay for that. Well, it leaves, you know, it won't have a smell. You won't know if it's leaking. So one of the things that came out of this meeting was a request, which I think is actually a good one. It made sense to me, and I think it made sense to Sarah and Steve, for our board to write a letter to MVP and send a copy of it to our elected officials on the state and national level, and probably DEQ, that kind of thing, to say, requesting from MVP, could they put an odorant in the gas? Now, us, all we can do is request and encourage. We can't say, can you do it? So, they're not going to do it just because we want them to do it. And so that came forward from the group, and Marty can coordinate with Linda, and they're going to come up with what goes in it and where it goes.
I mean, if it's a letter from us, it's our staff decides,
right,
and we
right.
decide what it's
right.
going to be.
For the specifics.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, and that's it.
Supervisor Bone.
No report.
Supervisor Shepard.
No report.
Supervisor DeMonts.
Just one very short thing. This past weekend, Saturday, was the big event at Virginia Tech. And I know that it's there in Blacksburg, but they go to Christiansburg, they go out towards Radford. I know they did a project for road cleanup all down 114. Hundreds of student volunteers go out into the community and complete projects at people's homes or places of business. It's free of charge. You don't have to demonstrate any financial need to have student volunteers come out. So I would encourage everybody to participate in the big event next year. It is always early in April, and it's the big event at Virginia Tech. Just Google that and you should come up with their website immediately. There's also Greeks Giving Back in the fall. And that's also a community-based program where they come out free of charge, no financial need has to be demonstrated, and they'll come out in the fall and also do stuff. So I would encourage citizens to participate in that. I saw a lot of really nice posts and pictures of projects all over Facebook from people all over the New River Valley that were very pleased with what the student volunteers did.
I'm going to be real brief. Couple of things. This was a long meeting. I appreciate all of you being here. I really appreciate the staff. Thank you very much for sticking around. And it was, oh, come back to time. It's late. All right.
Marty, there was a comment made earlier. I want to tell you how much I appreciate what you do, and I know for a fact what you do is correct, and I do appreciate that. That's all.
I'm just keep cutting you off tonight.
I know you do.
Anyways, I really appreciate the hours late. This meeting is adjourned.